Chapter 1721. In the secret chamber of the Crystal Palace. Sensing that Huang Fu Liang had left, Su Yu, who was meditating, opened his eyes slowly. Looking at the other three people who were meditating, Su Yu secretly used time acceleration. His comprehension was no longer as mediocre as it used to be after years of tempering by opportunities and treasures of heaven and earth. However, it was not top-notch either. There was still a big gap between him and the three heaven rulers of the sea of constellations in front of him. If he wanted to completely comprehend the faceless Buddha's comprehension before the Tai Chi light dissipated, he could only use the time acceleration divine technique. 500 times acceleration gave him 500 times more time than Empress Ziwei and the others. Entering the accelerated state, Su Yu immediately entered the comprehension state. The Path Master's comprehension left by the faceless Buddha flowed into his consciousness like a stream. The Path Master's comprehension was exceptionally profound. Su Yu found it difficult to comprehend at first. Everything was obscure and difficult to understand. This was even with Huang Fu Liang's help. However, after experiencing the Path Master's dull comprehension twice, Su Yu's tenacity was extraordinary. He took a deep breath and slowly comprehended with great patience. 1 day passed, but Su Yu had spent nearly 2 years. Without sleep or rest, Su Yu constantly comprehended the Path Master's comprehension, breaking through many bottlenecks with the help of the comprehension. In 1 day, Su Yu had only digested less than 1/10 of the comprehension. The progress was extremely slow. In contrast, Empress Ziwei, who was a genius, had only comprehended 1/10 of the comprehension in 1 day. Her comprehension speed was 100 times faster than Su Yu's. However, Su Yu was able to comprehend it patiently. 4 days later, the demonic energy in Su Yu's body vibrated, as if several demons were roaring fiercely. A hint of joy filled Su Yu's face. The 5th style of the demon sword, the demon born from the heart, was finally comprehended. The power of this style was even greater than the Demon Master's world. With the Demon Master's world, Su Yu could fight against ordinary golden overlords. With this style, even a peak golden overlord like Empress Ziwei might not be a match for Su Yu. Of course, if she digested the Path Master's comprehension and completely comprehended the meteorite ice tribulation, it might be different. After comprehending one aspect, Su Yu began to comprehend the breakthrough of the soul-devouring realm that he had failed twice with great expectations. He had been stuck at the small success realm for far too long, and both of his attempts at comprehension had failed due to external interference. This time, he must succeed with the help of the Path Master's comprehension. 10 days passed in a flash. Su Yu suddenly opened his eyes, which had undergone a shocking transformation. In the depths of his dark brown eyes, there was a pair of very faint silvery white pupils. If one didn't look carefully, they wouldn't be able to see it at all. As Su Yu's pupils shrunk, his silver white pupils quickly expanded, covering his dark brown pupils and replacing his previous pupils. His black eyes and silver pupils gave off a mysterious and noble feeling. Those who didn't know him might even think that Su Yu was a creature from a third-rate clan. When the silver-white pupils appeared, a sudden clap of thunder broke the silence of the North Sea. The deafening roar woke up many of the sleeping sea beasts. Imperial City. The Snow Dragon Emperor was in the midst of meditating, when a sudden clap of thunder caused his body to tremble, awakening from his meditative state. He teleported to the eaves in a flash and looked up at the sky with surprise in his eyes. What was that thunder just now? To actually be able to affect this emperor's meditation? As the emperors of the world, they were extremely powerful even when they were meditating. Unless they were willing to wake up, the outside world's influence would not be able to interfere with their comprehension. Furthermore, not only was he disturbed, but he was directly awakened. In the South Sea, the Emperor Sha was mobilizing the forces of the entire sea region to prepare for the upcoming battle of the ancient stars. Suddenly, a clap of thunder swept past, burying his voice. The Emperor Sha's expression changed. He suddenly looked up at the sky and said in shock, "What kind of thunder is that? Why have I never seen it before?" There were many types of thunder in the world. The Emperor Sha had never seen that clap of thunder before. East Sea. Another clap of thunder swept past, shaking the purple dream divine lady who was hidden in the divine bamboo. She looked up, slightly confused. What a strange thunder! It has no source and source, as if it came from nothingness. Huang Fu Liang, the chief cabinet master of the Starry Cabinet, who was deep in the imperial city, was also shocked. He was in another secret room, continuing to suppress the spread of the palm print on his chest. Suddenly, a clap of thunder swept past, shaking his entire body. The desolate power in his palm became unstable, causing the palm print to spread a little. Void divine thunder? How could it appear in our barbaric civilization? Huang Fu Liang's expression changed drastically. He came out of the secret room in an instant, looking up at the endless firmament world. He calculated with one hand, divining the secrets of heaven. His brows were sometimes solemn, sometimes relaxed, and sometimes puzzled. This is extremely strange. The void divine thunder that only appears in a 9-star civilization has appeared in the barbaric sea region without any warning. Huang Fu Liang divined. This divine thunder would only be beneficial to their battle of the ancient stars, so he was slightly relieved. However, he was still puzzled. After pondering for a while, he raised his eyebrows. Could someone be cultivating a heaven-defying divine technique? This was the only way to explain why the void divine thunder would cross the border and attack. Su Yu himself was also shocked by the clap of thunder. Unlike any thunderbolt that he had encountered before, the thunderbolt just now gave Su Yu a sense of extreme danger. Faintly, he also felt a threat from the Great Path. Breaking through to the upper tier of the spirit-devouring realm will lead to a threat from the Great Path? What if I cultivate the last level on the bronze board? What about the 5th level? Su Yu was shocked. The bronze board only recorded the 5 levels of the heavens sun-gazing at air. The first level was the soul-changing realm. The second level was the soul-control realm. The third level was the illusionary soul realm. The 4th level was the soul-devouring realm. When he cultivated to the 4th level, a warning from the Great Path appeared, preventing Su Yu from continuing to cultivate. He really didn't know what the consequences would be if he continued to cultivate the 5th level hidden on the bronze board. Ding! As if responding to Su Yu, the bronze board made a slight sound, and a brand new technique appeared. Strangely, unlike before, the writing was very vague, and it was impossible to see clearly with the naked eye. Out of curiosity, Su Yu used his soul energy to explore, and he could see a little more clearly. However, it was still vague, and he couldn't distinguish it clearly. Strange, Su Yu said in surprise. Is it because my soul isn't strong enough? After devouring the souls of a few overlords, his soul had skyrocketed to the level of a silver overlord. With such a powerful soul, he still couldn't see through the writing on the bronze board? If I want to cultivate the 5th level, I must work hard to improve my soul energy, Su Yu said to himself. Putting away the green stone board, Su Yu controlled his silvery white pupils to shrink back. This was the sign of the upper class of the soul-devouring realm. It was recorded on the green stone board that it could devour the souls of overlords. As for which level of overlords, there was no detailed explanation. However, it was precisely because there was no detailed explanation that it was terrifying. If he wasn't mistaken, the green stone board meant that any overlord's soul could be forcefully devoured by the soul-devouring realm, even if it was a glazed crystal overlord. Thinking of this, Su Yu's heart palpitated. If that was really the case, he would have another life-saving talisman. Seeing that the other 3 were still comprehending, Su Yu didn't come out immediately. The Path Master's comprehension he had obtained was many times more than theirs. If he finished digesting it first, anyone could tell that something was wrong with Suyu. Therefore, Suyu closed his eyes again, pretending to meditate, but his soul entered the 9-jade spiritual pearl. With a move of his heart, 2 lumps of Buddhist light appeared before him. One was the Path Master's Buddhist relic that had appeared on the head of the faceless Buddha statue. The other was the golden alms bowl that had fallen out of the stone statue after it had been trampled. The former was the Path Master's Buddhist relic that had caused an uproar. Later, it was confirmed by various parties that the existence of this item was a conspiracy of the Corpse Clan to deceive the many heavens' chosen ones. Unfortunately, the Corpse Clan didn't expect the Path Master's Buddhist relic to really exist. However, it didn't exist in the 2-story attic, but on the head of the stone statue. Suyu had obtained it by accident. He believed that if the Corpse Clan saw this item, they would be extremely shocked. Suyu didn't intend to accept the Buddhist path's legacy as he fumbled around the Path Master's Buddhist relic. As he had said before, it was better to walk out of the path by oneself. Putting down the Buddhist relic, Suyu looked at the golden alms bowl. This item was the strangest. It had been hidden inside the faceless Buddha statue, and it had only appeared when the stone statue had been shattered. The strangest thing was that when Suyu had tried to take this item, he had been pestered by the white-haired corpse. As a result, Suyu was forced to use the Royal Power Dragon Sovereign Sword in a desperate attempt to escape the crisis. This item must have an extraordinary significance to the white-haired corpse. After examining it for a while, Suyu touched the item with his finger. However, he was repelled by a strong force and his finger bounced off. A slight pain was transmitted to his fingertip. Faintly, demonic energy could be seen coming out of Suyu's fingertip. "Is it rejecting me?" Suyu murmured. This item had an extremely strong Buddhist nature, and the demonic sword that Suyu had cultivated just happened to be the nemesis of it. Hence, it rejected Suyu's touch. "This is a problem." Suyu sighed. He had obtained this item, but he couldn't use it. After putting it away, Suyu's eyes turned to look at it expectantly. In an instant, he came to the cottage. A round, chubby, and adorable creature was faintly discernible in the misty purple mist. It was breathing regularly, scratching itself with its hooves from time to time. It was very cute. "Is it still sleeping?" Suyu couldn't help but be disappointed. When he had forcibly used the Royal Power Dragon Sword, he had swallowed the Dragon Pearl. As a result, the excessive divine dragon power had filled Suyu's limbs and bones, and he was about to explode. It was the little Kylan who had sensed that Suyu was in danger and had thrown the heavenly orchid silver bamboo's silver fruit out of the 9-jade spiritual pearl. It had absorbed the divine dragon power in time, and Suyu had been spared. He had thought that the little Kylan had woken up, but it was still asleep. Suyu stroked its head, his eyes gentle and affectionate. In terms of closeness, the little Kylan had been with him for almost half of his martial arts career. It could be considered one of the closest people to him. As if it had sensed something in its dream, the little Kylan hummed a few times and spat out an unusually crisp young girl's voice. "Don't touch me, I hate you." Suyu was stunned. It could speak? In the past, the little Kylan had not inherited any language and could only use body language. How could it speak Kylan's language now? After sleeping for so many years, its body had really changed a lot. Next, to Suyu's surprise, an unusual force burst out of the little Kylan's body, and Suyu's palm on its head bounced off. Suyu's expression changed. Prehistoric force? That's right. It was the prehistoric force. Chapter 1722. Suyu's eyes were filled with disbelief as he looked at the small Kylan. Could it be that after sleeping for so many years, the little Kylan had attained the realm of the divine warrior of heaven and earth? Suyu couldn't help but think about how it was born to refine elixirs and divine weapons. Whose inheritance did the little Kylan inherit? He could only wait for the little Kylan to wake up before asking. In less than a year, it would wake up. Su Yu withdrew his hand from the 9-jade spiritual pearl. After his soul returned to his body, Su Yu discovered that the people in the secret chamber had woken up one after another. Blood Guanyin stared at Su Yu without blinking, and asked with a smile, "You've finally woken up? How much has the Tao Master digested?" The emotionless saber monarch also cast his gaze over. He wanted to compare who was superior and who was inferior. Even Empress Ziwei snorted coldly and turned her head away, but her ears perked up. The current Su Yu was one of the 5 spirit kings, who had eliminated all of them. Moreover, he had the Purple Dream Emperor as his backing. Hence, who would not be concerned about his cultivation level? Su Yu said, "About 10%? In fact, under the state of time acceleration of 500 times, he had already been meditating for a whole 20 years. With the help of Huang Fuliang's yin-yang light, he had completely digested all the Daolord's comprehension." Blood Guanyin heaved a sigh of relief and lightly patted her chest. "That's good. You are too smart. If your comprehension was that scary, I would be inferior to you." Su Yu smiled and did not speak. She wasn't the only one who had been outshone, even Empress Ziwei had been outshone. With the upper tier of the soul-devouring realm, even the Crystal Overlord would have to retreat if he encountered Su Yu. Empress Ziwei would not be able to defeat Su Yu with the meteorite ice tribulation alone. Humph! What a waste! If it was given to me with my comprehension ability, I would be able to comprehend at least 20%. Emotionless Saber Monarch snorted disdainfully. He admitted that his knife techniques were not as powerful as Su Yu's sword techniques, but he was very confident in his level of comprehension. Empress Ziwei looked at him with a hint of suspicion in her eyes. "Only 10%? Then you have to be careful for the rest of the journey. Do whatever you want." Su Yu shrugged his shoulders and ignored the threat in her words. When the cultivation ended, half a month had passed. A gentle voice rang out. "Hee, it seems like all of you have gained something." Huang Fu Liang appeared and said with a smile. The 4 of them greeted him. Su Yu said, "Thank you for your help, Chief Cabinet Master. I will definitely try my best to retrieve the cauldron from the Taishu faction. I hope Chief Cabinet Master can tell me the details of the cauldron." Huang Fuliang's expression turned solemn as he said, "There's no time to lose. Prepare to depart." He waved his sleeves, and a piece of tree bark appeared in each of their hands. The bark contains all the information you want, including the route, the location of the Great Void Gate, and the details of the cauldron. "If you are ready, then let's go," Huang Fuliang said. The 4 of them were slightly startled. In such a hurry, they didn't even have time to bid farewell to their own forces? Huang Fuliang said, "Don't worry, I have already informed them. The 4 of you will carry out this Pavilion Master's secret mission." Their trip was a secret. Thinking to this point, the 4 of them nodded in agreement and left. Huang Fuliang, on the other hand, formed a seal with his hands and shot out an obscure seal at the backs of the 4 of them. The 4 of them shuddered, faintly feeling that something was missing from their bodies. "Strange, why do I seem to have forgotten something?" Blood Guanyin turned around in a daze and saw the Chief Pavilion Master shrouded in yin and yang qi. The rest of them felt the same way, confused. The merciless Saber Emperor said blankly, "I seem to remember seeing the Chief Pavilion Master's true appearance, but why can't I remember?" Empress Ziwei was stunned. "He seemed to have told us some sort of secret, but I just can't remember it." In the secret chamber, the secrets that Huang Fuliang had told them had all been erased by him. Only Su Yu nodded blankly without batting an eyelid. "Oh, I seem to have forgotten something as well." But when no one was looking, Su Yu's eyes glowed with a strange light. Huang Fuliang watched the 4 of them leave, looking at Su Yu's back, slightly surprised. "Strange, why does my secret soul technique seem to have been swallowed by something when it landed on him?" Thinking for a moment, Huang Fuliang shook his head. "I must be thinking too much. What kind of divine technique could have swallowed my secret soul technique?" Su Yu and the others stepped onto the path of the Great Void Gate. Inside the starry pavilion, some seemingly insignificant changes had taken place. At the Red Leaf Pavilion, Pavilion Master Lili sat calmly on the armchair with a solemn expression. On both sides were the talented fighters of the Red Leaf Pavilion. Ever since Bai Xuejian, Shan Xiong, and Wei Lv had fallen, there were no more fighters among them. Lan Yu. Lili closed his eyes, his expression cold. Lan Yu walked out, her expression deeply uneasy. She said carefully, "Pavilion Master, please instruct me." Lili slowly opened his eyes, looking at her. Su Yu has been put in an important position by the Chief Pavilion Master to carry out a secret mission. Do you know what this means? Lan Yu's mouth was bitter. What did it mean? It meant that Su Yu was deeply trusted by the Chief Pavilion Master. Su Yu could influence the Chief Pavilion Master's decision with just a few words, especially regarding the internal affairs of the Starry Pavilion. Thinking back to all the times she had known Su Yu, Lan Yu was filled with regret. She had met Su Yu first, they could have become friends, and she could have followed Su Yu to the top. But in the end, she had abandoned Su Yu step by step. Now, she could only watch as Su Yu soared into the sky and his name spread throughout the sea of constellations. But she was still a nobody. I know. Su Yu will most likely return to the Starry Pavilion, Lan Yu replied. Lili's expression was indifferent. You don't know. Lan Yu raised her head, slightly confused. Do you remember how you treated Su Yu at the ancient dream altar? Lili said coldly. You colluded with outsiders and tried to kill Su Yu. Do you know your crime? Lan Yu hurriedly explained, Pavilion Master, I didn't. Shut up. Lili slammed the table and stood up. You're still trying to defend yourself. You sold your body to gain the right to enter the central region. You've disgraced the Red Leaf Pavilion. Lan Yu's face was flushed. Feeling the scornful gazes of her fellow pavilion members, her face burned. You don't know how to repent, and you colluded with outsiders to harm the former members of the Starry Pavilion. The more Lili spoke, the harsher his voice became. In the end, he was completely furious. The Red Leaf Pavilion does not have a disciple like you. Lan Yu understood the hidden meaning behind his words and immediately knelt down to plead for mercy. Pavilion Master, I know I was wrong. Please give me a chance to turn over a new leaf. There is no chance to turn over a new leaf, Lili said coldly. Yuan Tian, send Lan Yu back to her home, Juice Cloud Island. No one is allowed to enter the Starry Pavilion again. Lan Yu had been expelled. The reason was simple. Su Yu was powerful now. Regardless of his own abilities, the backing of the Purple Dream Divine Warrior, or the Starry Pavilion Master, he was not someone a mere Pavilion Master could provoke. In order to avoid trouble, he could only expel Lan Yu. Pavilion Master, you can't! Lan Yu cried out. But Lili waved his sleeves and sent Lan Yu flying out of the great hall. Scram! The cold rebuke caused Lan Yu's body to turn cold. Yuan Tian walked out and stood in front of her. He made a gesture of invitation with an expressionless face. Ninth sister, please. Lan Yu lifted her eyes and looked at the group of people in the great hall that she was familiar with in the past, the Deputy Pavilion Masters, and the Pavilion Masters. They used to be extremely passionate, but now they were all cold to her, as if they were strangers. A great humiliation welled up in her heart. She had never thought that one day she would be chased out of the Starry Pavilion. Creak, she clenched her fists and secretly clenched her teeth. Lowering her head, she left the Crystal Palace in a daze. She left the Imperial City and came to a desolate land of ice and snow. She didn't even turn her head and said, Eighth brother, you don't have to send me off anymore. I will return to my hometown myself. Don't worry about me returning to the Starry Pavilion. I don't have that face. An evil smile appeared on Yuan Tian's face. Junior sister, I think you misunderstood. The Pavilion Master secretly instructed me not to send you back to your hometown, but to send you on your way. What? Lan Yu abruptly turned her head and said angrily, "Pavilion Master, he wants to kill me?" The Pavilion Master just doesn't want to leave a threat outside, so he wants to eliminate the root of the problem. Yuan Tian approached her. Lan Yu said angrily, "I have been expelled from the Starry Pavilion. Although the Sea of Constellations is vast, which force would dare to take me in? How can a person like me threaten the Pavilion Master?" Yuan Tian looked at her. She was as beautiful as a fairy in the clouds. A cool breeze blew against her white veil, gently fluttering her beautiful hair. A trace of greed quickly flashed across his eyes. "Your beauty is the biggest threat," Yuan Tian said. "You can use your beauty to lure an expert like the heartless saber monarch. Who knows, you won't lure an even stronger backer and become the Pavilion Master's mortal enemy. So, junior sister, rest in peace." Yuan Tian took a step forward, his little fingers shooting out a strong divine power and pointing it between Lan Yu's eyebrows. Lan Yu shouted and retaliated with the orchid palm. Yuan Tian sneered. His thumb moved, and his right leg lashed out like a whip. Lan Yu was kicked away and crashed into a big tree. Her mouth was full of blood. Lan Yu smiled bitterly. She had been working for fame and fortune all her life, but in the end she was going to die in the hands of her former sibling. "I can't accept this. I am Lan Yu's daughter. Why do you have to do this to me?" Lan Yu leaned against the tree and let out a furious roar. Yuan Tian laughed strangely. "It's easy to say that you don't want to die. That is, if you are willing to join us." Lan Yu was stunned. "Us?" Yuan Tian smiled strangely and patted the space ring. Dozens of Level 1 Cavern World venerable ferocious dog-type beasts jumped out. Corpse-loving dogs? Lan Yu was terrified. When she and Yuan Tian rushed from the pavilion branch to the headquarters, they were besieged by 10 corpse-loving dogs. It was Su Yu who helped them out. At that time, she wondered why there were corpse-loving dogs near the Starry Pavilion's main pavilion. It turned out that those corpse-loving dogs were released by Yuan Tian himself. "Who are you?" Lan Yu asked in shock. Yuan Tian laughed strangely and took out a black iron plate. There was a clear pattern carved on it. A coffin. The Ancient Corpse Sect. Lan Yu was shocked. "How can you be a member of the Ancient Corpse Sect?" Yuan Tian laughed. "It's not just me. The Ancient Corpse Sect has long spread its influence into all the major forces. There is even a great figure that you can't imagine. He is also a member of the Ancient Corpse Sect." "What?" Lan Yu's hair stood on end. Over the years, the Ancient Corpse Sect had quietly grown so strong that it had infiltrated all the forces in the Sea of Constellations? Chapter 1723. Lan Yu seemed to be struggling. The Ancient Corpse Sect was the common enemy of all living beings. Joining them was tantamount to betraying the Sea of Constellations and going against all living beings. However, she recalled what had happened in the ancient dream altar. After the heartless Saber Emperor had toyed with her, he had casually abandoned her. She recalled how Cabinet Master Li had chased her away like a wild dog in order to curry favor with Su Yu. The struggle in her eyes quickly subsided and was replaced by a cold glint. "I'll join you," Lan Yu said resolutely. "Papa," Yuan Tian chuckled. "Congratulations, junior sister. You've made the right choice." She looked at the astonishingly beautiful Lan Yu and said, "I believe that after junior martial sister enters the Ancient Corpse Sect, you will definitely be put in an important position." Finished speaking, Yuan Tian brought Lan Yu and left the imperial city, entering a desolate snowfield. After a long and arduous journey, they arrived at a deserted ancient temple. Lan Yu followed Yuan Tian inside, and a shocking scene unfolded before her eyes. In the ancient temple, 2 rows of experts with terrifying auras stood side by side. Many of them were covered in corpse aura, but some of them were actually living beings from the Sea of Constellations. The Mansion Master of the Northern Seas 3 Murders Mansion? The Cave Master of the mysterious Nether Cave of the Eastern Sea? The South Sea Mighty God Sex Sect Master? Lan Yu was shocked. These people were all the leaders of the famous forces in the Sea of Constellations. Not long ago, he had attended the birthday of the Snow Dragon Emperor. However, at this moment, he was with the Corpse clan. On the throne at the very top sat an imposing figure in a cloak. His eyes were cold and filled with a disdainful spirit. His entire body released an aura that caused all living beings to tremble. The 2 rows of experts below him were as silent as cicadas in winter. White-haired corpse! Lan Yu exclaimed. The portrait of the white-haired corpse had already spread throughout the Sea of Constellations. The majestic figure covered in white fur was the mysterious white-haired corpse that the Sea of Constellations was searching for. No wonder the white-haired corpse had escaped without a trace. With so many spies helping him, who could find him? How dare you? The palace master of the 3 Murders Mansion snorted coldly and casually waved his hand to release a powerful divine power that struck Lan Yu's knees. Lan Yu groaned. Her knees softened and she knelt on the ground. She said hurriedly, "This concubine was rude. Please forgive me." She felt uneasy. "Raise your head." An indifferent and indisputable voice floated over. Lan Yu raised her head as she was told. Her pretty and fairy-like face entered the eyes of the man on the throne. A stunning beauty. The white-haired corpse revealed an expression of admiration. He got down from his throne and walked in front of Lan Yu. He stretched out his hand. "I need a queen. Are you willing?" Lan Yu couldn't believe her ears and said, "I'm willing." She couldn't believe that she was so lucky to be chosen by a divine warrior of heaven and earth. While everyone was envious, the white-haired corpse held Lan Yu's hand and ascended the throne. Lan Yu was pleasantly surprised. It was as if she was standing above countless people. However, she didn't notice the strange look that flashed through the white-haired corpse's eyes when he looked at her. "My queen, do you have any unfulfilled wishes?" the white-haired corpse asked. Lan Yu said without hesitation, "I want to kill 2 people." "Speak," the white-haired corpse said. Lan Yu's eyes were filled with hatred. "First, the second son of the Southern Sea Emperor Killer, the heartless Saber Emperor, must die. Secondly, the former member of the Starry Pavilion, Su Yu, must die as well." The white-haired corpse said, "What's the reason? The heartless Saber Emperor lied to me. He deserves to die." Lan Yu recalled the humiliation of being abandoned that day. She would never forget it. She once said that she would make the heartless Saber Emperor regret it. "What about Su Yu?" the white-haired corpse asked. Lan Yu opened her mouth but found that there was no reason. From the beginning to the end, Su Yu had never done anything wrong to her. He had even saved her twice. But why didn't she want to see Su Yu alive? Only she knew that she didn't want to see Su Yu live a good life. The more glorious Su Yu was, the more it showed how stupid it was for her to distance herself from Su Yu. And the more she regretted it. If Su Yu didn't die, there would be a pit in her heart that she couldn't cross. "Approved," the white-haired corpse said. "I will kill the whole family of the Emperor Killer. As for Su Yu, even if the queen doesn't kill him, I have a reason to kill him." After a pause, the white-haired corpse waved his hand. A wisp of powerful aura descended. Not only was his corpse energy heavy, but there was also an extremely dense death energy. What was even more shocking was the cultivation of the glazed crystal overlord. According to the news from the Emperor, Su Yu and a few other heaven rulers have been sent by that old man Huang Fu Liang to carry out a secret mission. If I'm not mistaken, they should be sent to the Taishu faction, the white-haired corpse said. "Death Sword, go there personally and bring back Su Yu's head." "Yes." The youth bowed and retreated. If Su Yu were here, he would definitely recognize this man covered in death and corpse energy. He was none other than the glazed crystal overlord youth who was adept at death energy attacks in the inn. Half a month later, in the East Sea, a bronze carriage cut through the sea at an alarming speed, heading straight for the end of the East Sea. The atmosphere in the carriage was a little strange. Su Yu and Shui Guanyin were interested in learning about martial arts and the customs of the Taishu faction. The heartless Saber Emperor and Empress Ziwei were silent. The former and Su Yu were not on the same page, so they naturally wouldn't speak. Empress Ziwei felt awkward, as if there was a knife at her back. Her face was flushed with a strange red. Empress Ziwei, are you sick? Why do you look so strange? Shui Guanyin looked at her suspiciously. How could she not look strange? Half a month ago, it was here that Su Yu had torn her clothes to shreds, recording a shameful scene that she would never forget for the rest of her life. Empress Ziwei looked as if her thoughts had been seen through. She anxiously shouted, "What nonsense are you talking about? Su Yu didn't do anything to me." Halfway through her sentence, Empress Ziwei hurriedly shut her mouth. Shui Guanyin was dumbfounded, her eyes darting back and forth between Su Yu and Empress Ziwei. Her suspicions were thick. At that moment, the heartless Saber Emperor snorted softly. Adulterous couple. He and his brother, the Wuji Sword Saint, had seen the carriage shake that day. Thud! As the group was conversing, the bronze carriage suddenly jolted. Su Yu raised his brows, immediately activating the detection function to spy on the situation outside. He saw that the bronze carriage had accidentally gotten stuck on the floating corpse of a giant ferocious beast. A golden overlord level azure wave beast? Empress Ziwei came over, frowning slightly. This beast is extremely difficult to hide. Even the crystal overlord can forget about catching it. How could it be killed? Moreover, the wound is so strange, as if the essence of its flesh and blood has been devoured. Su Yu's face darkened slightly. It was the same scene. A year ago, a body of 9 gods had appeared in the Jianxian Ocean. It had wreaked havoc in the ocean, slaughtering many large and small forces. Similar situations had occurred to many living creatures. The essence of their corpses had been devoured clean. The difference was that the last time it appeared, it was only a level 1 cavern world master. In just a year, even the Golden Overlord had been killed. The growth of that body of 9 gods was truly terrifying. To prevent the people in the carriage from worrying, Su Yu did not mention it. He turned off the detection function and drove the bronze carriage away. A few days later, at the end of the East Sea, the easternmost part of the Sea of Constellations, the bronze carriage stopped at the edge of the East Sea. The people present stood on the carriage, staring at the scene before them in shock. The area they were in was surging with waves. But one step further, and it was a world of dead silence, darkness, and cold nothingness, boundless as far as the eye could see. "So, this is what it looks like outside the Sea of Constellations," Blood Guanyin exclaimed. Empress Ziwei snorted coldly. "What's so strange about it? The civilization of the Sea of Constellations is surrounded by nothingness, and it is surrounded by nothingness. If you step out recklessly, you will die." Blood Guanyin was unconvinced. "Who doesn't know that? I also know that to leave the civilization of the Sea of Constellations, the only way is to ride the void meteorite." "Humph, then do you know that only the strongest person can ride the meteorite?" Empress Ziwei said proudly. "You. What are you so proud of?" Blood Guanyin stomped her feet in dissatisfaction. When Su Yu heard this, he understood everything. On the way, he had asked Blood Guanyin about the Du Empire. Between 2 civilizations, there was usually a terrifying nothingness. Even the Pathmasters, although they could control the great path rules and were not afraid of the nothingness, they might not dare to stay in the nothingness for long. Because in the nothingness there were too many terrible things that had existed since the creation of the world. For example, the void divine thunder. If struck by this thunder, even the Path Masters would be reduced to ashes in an instant. There was no exception. Therefore, the communication between civilizations was conducted through the meteorites in the nothingness. The void meteorite was one of the few substances that were not afraid of the nothingness. For the sake of communication between civilizations, The meteorites that fell into civilized worlds were all refined into meteorites that could be controlled by humans. After landing on a meteorite, one could control it to travel through the nothingness. But the premise was that the person controlling the meteorite could only be one person, and it had to be the strongest person on the meteorite. If Su Yu and the others wanted to control the meteorite, it had to be controlled by the strongest person. Otherwise, the meteorite would not be able to operate. Among them, the strongest person was undoubtedly Empress Ziwei. A hint of arrogance appeared at the corner of Empress Ziwei's mouth. She glared at Blood Guanyin provocatively, as if saying, "If you have the ability, fight with me for the right to control the meteorite." Blood Guanyin was furious, but there was nothing she could do. The difference in strength between the two was extremely great. Swoosh! Not long after they approached the edge, a meteorite with a surface full of holes and a diameter of only 100 feet flew over. The terrifying nothingness was nothing in front of the meteorite. Empress Ziwei was the first to jump up, followed by Su Yu. He looked around curiously and found a crystal plate in the center of the meteorite. After the four of them jumped up, the crystal plate immediately displayed information. "4 passengers, please come forward one by one to test your combat potential." Su Yu was slightly surprised. He had also thought about this question. How did the meteorite determine which of the people who ascended had the strongest cultivation? He had thought there would be some kind of simple test. He did not expect it to be about potential. While Su Yu was curious, the merciless Saber Emperor walked over first and stood with both feet on the crystal plate. The crystal plate shot out a ball of green light, sweeping across the merciless Saber Emperor's body as if performing a comprehensive examination. Soon, a row of tiny numbers appeared below the crystal plate. Combat potential 8,000. Seeing this number, Blood Guanyin was shocked. 8,000? Before I left for the ancient dream altar, the pavilion had tested me. My combat potential is only 5,000. Empress Ziwei raised her brows. Not bad. You're almost catching up to me before the ancient dream altar. The merciless Saber Emperor's performance before this could not be considered powerful, but after digesting the Path Master's comprehension, he had become so powerful that he was almost catching up to Empress Ziwei. That opportunity had helped the merciless Saber Emperor tremendously. A hint of excitement appeared on his face. Throughout the sea of constellations, there were very few strong people of the same generation who could stand shoulder to shoulder with him. He could not help but be overflowing with joy, his mood unprecedentedly open. When he looked at Su Yu, the corners of his mouth curled up, his eyes filled with fighting spirit. He was extremely unwilling to be defeated by Su Yu. Now that his combat power had skyrocketed, he was extremely confident that he could win if they were to fight again. Me too. Blood Guanyin was eager to try. Seeing that the merciless Saber Emperor had made such shocking progress, she did not want to fall behind. She wanted to try and see what her combat power was after digesting the Path Master's comprehension. With a light tap of her feet, she landed gracefully on the crystal plate. As the green light swept across her body, Blood Guanyin nervously pinched the corner of her sleeve, staring unblinkingly at the number that was about to appear. The merciless Saber Emperor was also paying close attention, not daring to miss it. Ding! With a crisp sound, words appeared on the crystal plate. Combat potential value 9,000. Yay! Blood Guanyin cheered excitedly. Her combat potential value had soared from 5,000 to 9,000, almost doubling. With a difference of 1,000 combat power, she had completely suppressed the merciless Saber Emperor. She heaved a long sigh of relief, her small face filled with joy. She returned with satisfaction. Her gaze swept toward Empress Ziwei. Her previous combat potential value was 8,000, but the current Blood Guanyin had surpassed her at that time. Humph! Empress Ziwei snorted in disdain. It's just 9,000. Her body flickered, appearing on the crystal plate. The green light swept across her body very carefully. Blood Guanyin and the merciless Saber Emperor stared intently, afraid to miss the slightest detail. Ding! When the green light finished scanning, the corresponding potential value appeared on the crystal plate. Combat potential value 24,000. Crack! In shock, the merciless Saber Emperor crushed the space storage device he was carrying. His mouth was dry as he muttered, 24,000. Blood Guanyin was motionless, frozen in place, clenching her fists in dissatisfaction. What a perverted woman! Suyu also clicked his tongue. From 8,000 combat power to 24,000 in one go, it had tripled. After digesting the Path Master's enlightenment, her improvement was ridiculous. Empress Ziwei walked down proudly, like a crane among chickens. She said coldly, "There are no objections to me controlling the Siderite, right?" The merciless Saber Emperor was convinced. "Apart from you, no one else is qualified." But Blood Guanyin was not convinced. She pulled Suyu over. "Humph, it's not over yet. Suyu hasn't scanned it yet." "Him?" The merciless Saber Emperor was disdainful. "You haven't even digested 10% of the Path Master's enlightenment. How much improvement can you make? You can't even compare to me." But Empress Ziwei glared at Suyu, a faint smile on her face. "Aren't you quite impressive? Let me see how capable you are." Suyu said, "There's no need? If you like controlling the Siderite, you can do it." Empress Ziwei's smile deepened. "Cut the crap. Test it now. If you don't participate in the test, the Siderite will not be activated. Is that so?" Suyu stood up helplessly. Chapter 1724. Hoping to get lucky, Suyu stepped onto the crystal plate. Creak. The powerful green light scanned from his feet up, penetrating his entire body and scanning every part of his body. Suyu felt as if his entire body was being seen through. Even his soul was being scanned, but it could not penetrate further. When the scan was complete, a line of numbers appeared on the crystal plate with a ding. Battle potential, 240,000. Suyu's face darkened. Wasn't the green light's examination too detailed? 240,000 was 10 times more powerful than Empress Ziwei's. If nothing out of the ordinary happened, it must have taken into account the upper tier of the spirit-devouring state, which was why it was far higher than Empress Ziwei's. Fortunately, the green light only scanned the body, and could not examine unused divine weapons. Otherwise, with the Royal Dragon Sword, the value would definitely exceed 1,000,000. But even so, it was enough to shock everyone present. The merciless Saber Emperor gasped. "Is there a mistake? 240,000? Not 24,000, not 24,000, but 240,000. Shui Guanyin was stunned as well, unable to comprehend how 240,000 battle potential was stacked. Empress Ziwei was also shocked. How could it be the battle potential of a peak overlord? Based on her understanding, 24,000 was the battle potential of a golden overlord, while the battle potential of a dark crystal overlord did not exceed 120,000. 240,000 was the battle potential of a peak overlord. Apart from half-step worldly sovereigns, very few people in the overlord realm could surpass 240,000 battle potential value. Suyu was merely a bronze overlord, but his battle potential was as high as 240,000. Empress Ziwei could not help but wonder if the crystal plate's examination was unfair. But thinking about it, when she had fought Suyu head-on at the Crystal Palace, not only had she not been able to suppress him, she had been subdued by him. After comprehending the Path Master's comprehension, it was not impossible for his battle potential to soar again. How much of the Path Master's comprehension have you actually digested? Empress Ziwei stepped forward and questioned fiercely. Shui Guanyin and the merciless Saber Emperor finally understood. If they still believed Suyu's 10%, they would be fools. Being stared at by 3 pairs of eyes, Suyu smiled bitterly. If he had known there would be such an examination, he would not have concealed it. "Cough cough, about 50%, Suyu said. "Hiss," Blood Guanine sucked in a cold breath and said, 50%? The Daelord's comprehensions you've obtained are 5 times ours to begin with. If you digest 50% of it, then wouldn't that mean that you've digested 5 times ours? The merciless Saber Emperor was deeply shocked. He had thought that after he had digested the comprehension, his abilities would be far above Su Yu's. Who would have thought that Su Yu would hide everything and only reveal the tip of the iceberg? The Daelord's comprehension was 2.5 times that of his, and the explosive increase in his strength would definitely be astonishing. However, even so, his battle potential value was as high as 240,000, which was still incredible. Unless Su Yu had cultivated the most top-notch divine technique in the Sea of Constellations. Empress Ziwei gritted her teeth and clenched her fist. At first, he thought that he finally had a chance to snatch back the shameful image from Su Yu's hands with force. Who would have thought that Su Yu's abilities would increase to such a terrifying extent? Sirs, we shouldn't delay any longer. Let's quickly set off. Su Yu jumped off the crystal plate. After the 4 of them had finished their examination, a red beam of light shot out of the crystal plate and shone on the space between Su Yu's brows. Some information appeared in Su Yu's mind. It was the method to control the fallen stars. There wasn't just one type of control method, but almost 10,000 types. There are so many control methods? Su Yu was astonished. After reading it carefully, he discovered that each method of manipulation was written in a different language. So, the method to control the fallen stars of the 10,000 clans is in the fallen stars. Su Yu was a little surprised. Then, how powerful is the force that refined the fallen stars into a transportation tool? Collecting 10,000 types of the divine clan's control methods of the fallen stars was truly shocking. Su Yu couldn't help but ask, Little Een, isn't it our Sea of Constellation civilization that refined the fallen stars? Shui Guanyin was shocked. How could it be our civilization? Even the Diu civilization couldn't have refined such a fallen star. Then who is it? Su Yu was extremely curious. What kind of powerful force could unify the control methods of 10,000 clans? The Ecliptic Palace, Shui Guanyin said with admiration in her eyes. The Ecliptic Palace. Su Yu had read many books of the Great Beginning Realm, but he had never seen a force like the Ecliptic Palace in any of them. What's the background of that force? Su Yu asked. Shui Guanyin shook her head. I don't know. The only thing I know is that it's a 6-star civilization that rules over countless civilizations. The Path Master of the Faceless Buddha is from the Ecliptic Palace. A 6-star civilization? What kind of prosperous super-civilization was that? What surprised Su Yu even more was that the Faceless Buddha was from there. What's so surprising about that? Empress Ziwei snorted. It's not just the Faceless Buddha. Even the Path Master who enlightened the Purple Dream Divine Warrior is from the Ecliptic Palace. Those who are qualified to join the Ecliptic Palace are all Path Master level Supremes. Su Yu's pupils shrank. A force composed entirely of Path Masters? Wouldn't that force be powerful enough to make the entire Great Beginning Realm tremble? Shui Guanyin wrinkled her nose. Humph. You seem to be the only one who understands karma. Then tell me. Empress Ziwei's eyes narrowed. Seeing that the two were arguing again, Su Yu hurriedly activated the fallen star and set off. The 10,000 clans had different ways of controlling the fallen stars. There were high and low levels. The higher the level of the race, the more advanced their control methods were. For example, there was a race called the Heavenly Wings, which belonged to the top 3 races. The meteors they controlled with their meteor manipulation method were not only fast, but also agile. In contrast, the control methods of the lower 3 races were rather backward. The fallen stars they controlled were not only extremely slow, but also very clumsy. Once they encountered an unexpected situation, they couldn't even dodge in time. Sigh, the human race is really backward among the 10,000 races. Su Yu sighed softly. Because Su Yu was proficient in the languages of the various races, in theory, he could use all the control methods recorded in the fallen star without any pressure. After a moment's consideration, Su Yu chose the control method of the human race. There were countless experts in the Dayu civilization. In an unfamiliar place, it was best not to expose his proficiency in the various languages of the different races. The control method of the human race was very easy to learn. Su Yu mastered it with just a few thoughts. He weaved a seal with one hand and pressed it on the crystal plate. The fallen star immediately vibrated with a loud rumble and moved toward the boundless dark void. Empress Ziwei's face immediately darkened. Haven't you learned a few languages of the different races? There was no other reason than that the speed of the fallen star was too slow, far slower than the bronze horse. The merciless Saber Emperor's expression was also ugly. If this goes on, when will we reach the Diu Empire? Even Blood Guanyin couldn't help but mutter, isn't this too backward? Not only was it as slow as a snail, but the entire fallen star was rumbling loudly and extremely noisy. It was difficult to even rest quietly for a while, let alone meditate and train. Brother Su Yu, I heard that you once translated hundreds of books of the different races' languages in the Jianxian Seas. Are there not a few races of a higher level among the different races? Wouldn't it save more time to use their control methods? Hearing this, Empress Ziwei was slightly surprised. Hundreds of books of the different races' languages? Didn't that mean that Su Yu was proficient in hundreds of the different races' languages? She felt incredulous. She had never heard of anyone in the constellation Ocean being proficient in so many languages of the different races' civilizations. Immediately, she furrowed her brows. Su, are you doing this on purpose? If you are proficient in so many languages, why didn't you choose a better control method? You deliberately chose the human race's language. Are you trying to torture us to death? Su Yu shrugged. Yes, so what? I. Empress Ziwei was so angry that her nose was crooked. She stood up abruptly, feeling the urge to strangle Su Yu to death. But remembering that he had a handle on her, she sat down angrily. Regardless of their complaints, Su Yu slowly and methodically advanced through the desolate void. After traveling for half a month, the group looked at the map. We've only traveled a tenth of the distance. Empress Ziwei pinched the jade talisman and stared at Su Yu in annoyance. Thanks to you, if I were the one controlling it, we would have traveled at least half the distance by now. The merciless Saber's face was even more sullen. He wanted nothing more than to stomp Su Yu into the ground so that he wouldn't have to suffer this humiliation. Su Yu closed his eyes and calmly said, "There's no hurry." The chief cabinet master did not specify a time limit. He must have considered the dangers along the way and hoped that we would proceed with caution and not rush things. Empress Ziwei's face was cold. What dangers can there be in the void? The real danger is the gate of great void. Rumble. A soft rumble suddenly came from their side. Everyone's heart skipped a beat, and they immediately looked to the side. They saw a meteorite wrapped in flames, traveling through the void at lightning speed. The meteorite almost brushed past Su Yu and the others, stirring up a strong gust of wind. Coupled with the fact that the human race's control technique was too backward, the meteorite was exceptionally slow. It did not manage to dodge in time and was blown off course by the strong gust of wind. The meteorite had no intention of stopping. It continued on its way, but it seemed to have noticed something. It gradually slowed down and turned around nimbly, slowly approaching Su Yu and the others. Several handsome young men stood on the meteorite, their robes fluttering in the wind. All of them were extraordinarily handsome and had a noble air about them. However, the evil energy on them could not be concealed. Inferior control technique? You are humans, aren't you? As the meteorite approached, the young man in the center sized up Su Yu with a scrutinizing gaze. Su Yu said calmly, "Did you come back to apologize?" He did not believe that they had not noticed Su Yu and the others' meteorite just now. With the agility of their control of the meteorite, they could have easily avoided the dangerous situation of brushing past them. However, they had still done so. Apologize. The man in the center sneered. A resident of a 2-star civilization apologizing to a barbarian who is not even a star civilization? Little savage, you think too much. 2-star civilization? Not the Dew Empire, but a resident of another civilization. It's none of your business. Get lost. The man in the center snorted, then turned his gaze to Empress Ziwei and Shui Guanyin. These 2 barbarian women are not bad-looking. Come, be our cauldrons, and we'll give you a lift. Barbarian women? Suyu looked at the 4 people on the meteorite. The strongest was the Golden Overlord who had spoken. He should be at the peak of the Golden Overlord level. The other 3 were also at the level of the Golden Overlord, but compared to this person, they were much weaker. Suyu sighed, a hint of pity on his face. Barbarian women? Who are you talking about? Empress Ziwei laughed angrily. First, the meteorite collided with them, then he called her a barbarian woman, and he even asked her to be his cauldron. That was fine, but his tone was as if he was giving her face by asking her to be his cauldron. Chapter 1725. Oh? Quite a temper. The young man in the room mocked. It's only interesting when a fierce horse is tamed. Schwa, he controlled the meteorite and connected it with Su Yu's meteorite. Then, he stepped on the connecting point and landed on Su Yu and the other's meteorite. Barbarian girl, if I don't take you in today, I'll write my surname backwards, the young man in the room said arrogantly. Shui Guanyin said blankly, What's your surname? King. The youth in the room said. Blood Guanyin pursed her lips. King of the tortoises? That's right, Wang as in Wang Ba. The young man reacted and said angrily, Barbarian woman, I'll take you in as well. Blood Guanyin muttered, How cunning. Even if the king is written upside down, isn't he still a king? Courting death. The youth surnamed Wang shouted angrily, brazenly taking action. 8-armed Yama. The youth surnamed Wang suddenly made his move. 8 dark and heavy illusory arms appeared behind him and slapped toward the Blood Guanyin. Extreme Ice Feast. Empress Ziwei was the one who had attacked. Although the 2 women didn't see eye to eye with each other, the man surnamed Wang was too loathsome, so they naturally shared a common enemy. Crack. The youth surnamed Wang's 8-armed phantom froze in an instant. His entire body was covered in frost, and his entire face was stiff. This scene infuriated the people who came with him. How dare you? How dare you be so rude to our joyous Union's sacred ruins, young master? Swish, swish, swish. The 3 of them scuttled onto Su Yu and the other's meteorite. What responded to them was the Blood Guanyin snorting in disgust. The 9 children are of one heart. 9 clones that were exactly the same as her surged out. It was 9 against 3, and it was a battle of the same level. The result was obvious. After a few breaths of time, all 4 of them, including the man surnamed Wang, were tossed into a corner, and all of them had swollen faces like pigs. They were utterly wasted, and they didn't seem handsome and noble at all. Empress Ziwei harumphed coldly. You have the face to ask me to become your cauldron with such meager abilities? Humph, a bunch of trash who aren't even qualified to lick this empress' shoes. Blood Guanyin's gaze turned slightly cold. She put her palms together and released a serene and tranquil state, saying, It's better to purify you and send you on your way so that you don't harm others. These were clearly cruel words to kill, but when they came out of her mouth, they sounded like a compassionate Buddha who delivered all living things from suffering. She looked weak, but in reality she was decisive. Let's go. The youth surnamed Wang suddenly crushed an extremely powerful talisman, shaking off the Blood Guanyin's artistic conception. He also shattered the ice covering his body and rushed back to his meteorite. The other 3 also ran back. As soon as he returned, the young man surnamed Wang immediately urged Meteor to fly away, increasing the distance between them. At this moment, He finally stopped with resentment and said angrily, "Barbarian woman, just you wait! My joyous Union sacred ruins will never let you off." Empress Ziwei glared at Su Yu in annoyance. "Don't you need to use a more advanced manipulation technique to catch up to them?" Blood Guanyin was also impatient. She wanted to chase after them and destroy them. They really did not want to be targeted by a 2-star civilization. However, at this moment, an incomparably huge gray palm suddenly slapped down from the horizon and grabbed hold of Wang's meteor. Su Yu's eyelids twitched. "Divine warriors of heaven and earth?" Empress Ziwei and Shui Guanyin's expressions stiffened, and fear appeared in their eyes. How could a divine monarch of heaven and earth appear here? The heartless saber monarch swallowed his saliva, and his complexion turned green. "Haha, I've finally caught a decent race." A magnificent voice came from the horizon. A meteorite almost instantaneously teleported over, and a creature covered in pitch-black scales emerged from it with its hands clasped behind its back. It looked like a dragon but not a dragon, but it had some of the charm of a dragon. It was a flood dragon, the emperor of the flood dragon race. The youth surnamed Wang turned pale with shock. "Senior, I am the young master of the joyous Union sacred ruins. If I have offended you, please show mercy." "I have not offended you, but I am crafting a supreme treasure that can escape into nothingness. I need some races that are good at manipulating meteorites. Your manipulation technique is above average, and barely meets my requirement. So, I will reluctantly lend you your soul." Then, the giant gray palm clenched, and the entire meteorite was crushed. Apart from the youth surnamed Wang, the other 3 youths were crushed, and their souls did not escape. The youth surnamed Wang's body was crushed, and his soul was captured by the giant gray palm and brought back. The Flood Dragon Emperor opened his mouth and sucked, swallowing the youth surnamed Wang's soul into his stomach. The horrifying scene played out before their eyes, and Empress Ziwei and the other 2 were terrified. Their expressions were grave, and they did not dare to move, as if they were waiting for the judgment of the divine warrior of heaven and earth. The Flood Dragon Emperor sucked away the soul, then glanced at the meteorite Su Yu and the others were on. The most inferior method of manipulating meteorites. Shaking his head, the Flood Dragon Emperor did not even bother to pay them any attention. He simply rode the meteorite away with his hands clasped behind his back. Whoosh! The heartless saber monarch sat paralyzed on the ground, his face still pale. He breathed heavily, and beads of sweat the size of beans flowed down his forehead. Thinking back to the scene just now, the heartless saber monarch's heart thumped wildly. That was close. They had barely escaped with their lives. Shui Guanyin patted her young chest, and said with lingering fear, "That was too terrifying. We actually encountered the divine warrior of heaven and earth in such a vast void. And the most savage flood dragon race at that." Even Empress Ziwei felt a lingering fear. Thankfully, we are like ants in his eyes. He doesn't even spare a glance for us. Otherwise, everyone's hearts trembled as they thought about it. "Brother Su Yu, aren't you afraid?" Shui Guanyin looked at Su Yu in surprise. She saw that Su Yu's expression was calm and did not show much panic. Su Yu calmly said, "His target is not us. What is there to worry about?" Shui Guanyin recalled. "That's right. What the Flood Dragon Emperor wanted was the superior method of manipulating meteorite. Our method was the most inferior, and that's why we managed to escape." Hearing that, Empress Ziwei's expression changed. It was precisely because Su Yu had insisted on being cautious and would rather spend more time than expose himself that the Flood Dragon Emperor had let them go. As she thought of this, Empress Ziwei secretly praised her good luck. She couldn't help but size up Su Yu from the corner of her eye as she thought to herself, although this guy is evil to the core and calculative, and even despicably threatened me with that kind of image, in terms of training, he has his own unique points. In fact, what they did not know was that Su Yu was not much better off than them. He was just calm on the surface. Because just now, there was an item in Su Yu's 9-jade spiritual pearl that had been sealed for a long time. It was intensely responding, as if it had been summoned. Su Yu had secretly used all of his divine power to block out that response. Coupled with the fact that the Flood Dragon Emperor was not close, he did not notice the response. Now, that response had broken through the suppression and was leaking out. Fortunately, the Flood Dragon Emperor had gone far away. Otherwise, with the Flood Dragon Emperor's wanton killing nature wiping the cold sweat from his forehead, Su Yu hurriedly dispelled the response. Unexpectedly, a wave of fluctuation appeared silently behind Su Yu and Yun Xing's back. I thought I had sensed wrongly. I didn't expect it to be true. Su Yu turned his head and his pupils shrank. It was the Flood Dragon Emperor. Chapter 1726. Su Yu's heart sank. Everything happened so suddenly that he was not prepared at all. Who would have thought that the amber would suddenly send a response? The amber was what was hidden in the 5 elements' divine prison after it was broken. There were many demon gods of the flood dragons sealed in the amber, and they were in a half-dead, half-alive state. Su Yu had almost forgotten about it until this moment, when it suddenly emitted a fluctuation and caused great trouble. Su Yu looked calm and said, "Elder, I think you have misunderstood. How could I, a human, possess something of the flood dragon race?" However, as Su Yu spoke, an even more powerful fluctuation burst forth from the lake, completely breaking through Su Yu's suppression. An exuberant will rushed out. "Emperor, save me, I am of the black-green flood dragon bloodline." Su Yu's face darkened. A black-green flood dragon. The Dragon Emperor's eyes flashed, and he exclaimed, "The black-green bloodline, the flood dragon royal family?" Su Yu was also slightly surprised. The black-green flood dragon was actually of the flood dragon royal family. This evil dragon really hid a lot of secrets. "Human ant, hand over the royal family member immediately." The Dragon Emperor urged the meteor to crash straight over. Su Yu's eyes were cold, and with a thought, a mouthful of dragon blood burst out from the lake, turning into flames and burning the soul of the black-green flood dragon. This was the seal that Su Yu had set up for the black-green flood dragon, and it contained a mouthful of Su Yu's dragon blood. With a thought, Su Yu could activate the dragon blood and destroy the soul of the black-green flood dragon. "Ah! Emperor, save me, I have a secret to tell you." The black-green flood dragon had been controlled by Su Yu for many years, and now that it suddenly sensed the existence of the Dragon Emperor, it was willing to risk everything. With the strength of the Dragon Emperor, even if it had one last breath left, it could still be saved by the Emperor. The dragon blood seal might not be able to kill it. Therefore, he was betting that the Flood Dragon Emperor would be able to kill Su Yu with lightning speed and rescue him. "This kid is the ancient god Jilong's." The black-green flood dragon screamed, trying to attract the Emperor to kill Su Yu as quickly as possible. Su Yu's eyes sharpened, and he wiped his fingers, pulling the black-green flood dragon's soul out of the amber. A mass of flames burned fiercely in Su Yu's palm, accelerating the destruction of the black-green water dragon. The Flood Dragon Emperor was furious. "Ant, put him down and I'll spare your life." The black-green water dragon also roared, "Human, in front of the Emperor, you will die. If you let me go now, I might still be able to live." What it said was not wrong. In this boundless void, no one could help Su Yu. In the face of a supreme being like the Emperor, there was no way they could survive. The only way to survive was to let go of the black-green water dragon and then beg it to spare him. In other words, his life had fallen into the hands of the black-green water dragon. If he wanted Su Yu to live, then Su Yu could live. If he wanted Su Yu to die, then Su Yu would surely die. Su Yu looked calm and stared at the black-green water dragon coldly. "I wanted to keep my promise and let you go after 100 years. Unfortunately, you didn't cherish it." After saying this, Su Yu put his palms together and slowly closed them. The black-green flood dragon's soul was gradually compressed. Its body cracked and was destroyed at an even faster speed. Ah, Sue, don't you want to go back? The black-green water dragon roared in shock and anger. It never imagined that Su-Yu would dare to kill it in front of the Flood Dragon Emperor. What it got was Su-Yu's increasingly cold eyes. Its soul was crushed and cracked everywhere, and it was about to be destroyed. The black-green water dragon was finally frightened and hurriedly said, "Master, please have mercy. I will never dare to do it again. There is no future." Su-Yu closed his palms indifferently. Puff! The black-green water dragon's soul was completely crushed. In the past, it secretly absorbed the flesh and blood of the demon god in an attempt to assassinate Su-Yu at a critical moment. Su-Yu spared it once. This was the second time, and it would be the last time. Clapping his hands and shaking off the ashes of the black-green water dragon's soul, Su-Yu spread his hands and said, "As you can see, there is no Flood Dragon Emperor here." "Aunt, how dare you?" The Flood Dragon Emperor couldn't believe his eyes. In front of him, Su-Yu dared to disobey him and kill his own kind that he wanted to protect. Not only that, but Su-Yu also dared to provoke him. He reached out, and a huge dragon's palm slammed down from the void. Just like the youth surnamed Wang, it was likely that he would be crushed to death in the next moment. Su-Yu smiled lightly. "I call you elder because your cultivation is higher than mine. Don't think that you can control the death of others so easily." As he finished speaking, Su-Yu formed a seal with both hands and pointed at the crystal plate again. A surprising scene appeared. Yunxing, who had been abnormally clumsy, actually became abnormally agile. With a swoosh, it quickly dodged the attack. The Flood Dragon Emperor was stunned and urged the meteorite forward. However, the meteorite under Su-Yu's feet disappeared at an even faster speed. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared without a trace. Lightning Wings Technique. The Flood Dragon Emperor was shocked, and then his face was filled with ecstasy. This is the Heavenly Wings clan's technique to control meteorites. Someone can read the words of the Heavenly Wings clan. In his ecstasy, the Flood Dragon Emperor laughed and chased after Su-Yu. "I searched far and wide. I found it effortlessly. Human Jr., come back here." However, when he chased after Su-Yu, he could no longer see him. Not even his breath was left. What's going on? Why is there breath? The Flood Dragon Emperor's face stiffened. Countless mountains and rivers away, Su-Yu quietly suppressed the flickering oil lamp on his chest. Since he had chosen to leave, he would naturally take care of everything. Coincidentally, among the 10,000 paths he had cultivated, there was a path that could isolate one's breath. After creating this rule, even the divine warriors of heaven and earth could no longer detect their breath. "Brother Su-Yu, what did you do?" Shueguanin's mouth formed an O shape. Everything that had happened just now was like a dream. They had escaped from the hands of the divine warriors so easily? Looking at the rapidly retreating illusory afterimages, as well as the meteors that were quickly overtaken by them and then thrown off, the Blood Guanyin was completely stupefied. She remembered that even when the chief pavilion master personally controlled the meteorite, it did not move at such an exaggerated speed. Empress Ziwei was also shocked. This speed was too terrifying. She compared it to the map and found that in just a few breaths, they had jumped a tenth of the distance, which was equivalent to half a month's journey. For no reason, Empress Ziwei trembled, staring at Su-Yu's back, a little fear growing in her heart. This man had hidden his strength too deeply, too deeply. Su-Yu looked back and said to Shueguanin, "It's just choosing the right method of controlling the meteorite at the right time." Everyone lowered their heads guiltily when they heard this. Fortunately, Su-Yu persisted and did not use extreme speed from the start. Otherwise, if he had collided with the Flood Dragon Emperor, he would not even know how he died. After continuously jumping for more than half the distance, Su-Yu once again chose the clumsy method of controlling the meteorite in a barren land. Strangely, no one had any more doubts. Instead, they were relieved. They were afraid of encountering murderers like the Flood Dragon Emperor again. Half a month passed. The meteorite finally arrived in front of a bright nebula without mishap. At a glance, in the depths of the nothingness stood a huge palace. The palace was majestic, reflecting divine light that illuminated the nothingness. It shone brilliantly, looking exceptionally majestic and majestic. That is the Dew Empire. It was not difficult to hear a trace of yearning in Shui Guanin's tone. The civilization that had only been seen in various ancient texts was presented in front of them. It was no different from finding the legendary Holy Land. Empress Ziwei's fighting spirit surged, looking down on the world. A 2.5-star civilization, there must be many strong peers here. The heartless Saber Emperor felt inferior. We should hurry to the Taishu sect and find that cauldron first. Suyu looked at the map and could not help but be stunned. The magnificent palace in front of them was the Dew Empire. But the map showed that they were still less than half a month away from the real Dew Empire. They could see the Dew Empire from so far away? One could imagine the grandeur of the Dew Empire, hundreds of times greater than the civilization of the Sea of Constellations. As the meteorite continued forward, the palace grew larger and larger, finally expanding to a boundless size. At a glance, the end of the palace could not be seen. Half a month later, they arrived at the entrance to the Dew Empire. It was a precipitous cliff of tens of thousands of zhang. At the bottom of the cliff, where it bordered the nothingness, there were tens of thousands of man-made passageways. All the meteorites passed through the passageways. Looking around, there were countless meteorites passing through. Most of them were residents of low-level civilizations like Suyu. They drove the meteorites into the passageway, and at the end of the passageway was the shore. There were 2 glazed crystal overlords guarding the shore, inspecting the people who came ashore one by one. Suyu and the others lined up to go ashore. When it was their turn, the black-robed elder asked mechanically, "Where are you from?" "The Sea of Constellations," Suyu said, stepping forward. The black-robed elder slowly flipped open a handwritten book, flipping through page after page. He only found the words, "Sea of Constellations," at the end of the last page. When he raised his eyes again, the black-robed elder examined Suyu and the others. "Why did you come to the Dew Empire? How long are you planning to stay?" His tone was like interrogating a criminal. He was afraid that Suyu and the others would not leave after coming to the Dew Empire. Suyu had long heard that residents of low-level civilizations would often be discriminated against when they went to high-level civilizations. He did not expect to encounter them at the entrance. "The Door of Great Void will take about a year to go there and back," Suyu said. The black-robed elder nodded indifferently, took out 4 official documents, and injected a unique aura into each of them. A line of small words flickered on the official documents. Temporary residence, time limit of 1 month. Suyu's expression changed slightly. "Elder, 1 month is impossible." The black-robed elder interrupted Suyu expressionlessly. "After a month, leave the Dew Empire. Anyone who disobeys will be imprisoned in the Empire's prison forever and become a slave for life." "You're such a bully." Empress Ziwei flew into a rage on the spot. Even the divine warriors of heaven and earth could not make it in a month. This inspector was obviously looking down on them and deliberately making things difficult for them. "Don't be rash." Suyu pressed down on Empress Ziwei's shoulder in time and transmitted his voice to her. Empress Ziwei was already furious, and when Suyu's large hand pressed down on her shoulder, she felt as if an electric current was surging into her body from her shoulder. Empress Ziwei shuddered, and her anger was completely extinguished. "You, let go of me." Empress Ziwei's pretty face was flushed, and her teeth were chattering. Her eyes were misty. The pressure reminded her of the unbearable scene in the bronze carriage. Suyu did not notice her strange behavior. He put away the 4 official documents and cupped his fist. "Thank you, Elder. Go." The black-robed elder waved his sleeves as if he was shooing away flies. Su Yu's face was expressionless as he led the three away. Not long after they left, the green-robed elder beside the black-robed elder, who had been silent all this while, chuckled. Old Xian, you've deducted another 3 years and 8 months. That should be enough to exchange for a lot of good stuff for your disciples, right? The black-robed elder put on a fake smile. The barbarians from a barbaric civilization have deducted their stay time for the sake of the Du Empire's civilization, lest the barbarians cause trouble and disrupt the order of the empire. Ha ha! The green-robed elder laughed calmly. At that moment another meteorite approached, and he immediately sat up straight. It's my turn this time. A meteorite that was slightly larger in size was slowly approaching. There were more than 10 people on the meteorite, and their leader was an enchanting and charming woman. She exuded an unparalleled charm from head to toe. Even the black-robed elder and the green-robed elder, who were quite old, could not help but look a little infatuated. When they came back to their senses, both of them were shocked at the same time, their faces filled with intense shock. Even the glazed crystal overlord could not escape the charm of this woman. How powerful was the charm emitted by this woman! As the meteorite approached, the clothes of the group of people gradually became clearer. The charming woman's full chest was embroidered with a pink flower symbol. At first glance, it was an exquisite acacia flower. But upon closer inspection, it was a scene of hundreds of men and women having sex together. Seeing this symbol, the black-robed elder and the green-robed elder's expressions suddenly turned serious. They stood up one after another, their previous arrogance gone. So it's the representative of the Acacia Holy Ground from the holy faction of the Acacia civilization, a 2-star civilization. The black-robed elder's eyes were full of smiles, completely different from his previous arrogance. The green-robed elder's eyes were also full of smiles as he greeted them with cupped fists. The charming woman's beautiful eyes swept over them. This glance caused their bodies to tremble, their hearts thumping wildly. They actually felt extremely tempted. Hee, may I ask if my useless 13th brother has arrived at the Du civilization? The charming woman asked with a smile. Her voice fell into their ears, causing them to tremble all over. They replied without hesitation, the 13th young master has not arrived. That's strange. 13th brother left half a month ago, but he has not arrived yet. Could it be that he has gone to the civilizations along the way to look for beauties? The charming woman smiled like a flower. Elders, if my 13th brother returns, please let me know. Definitely. The 2 elders' eyes were dazed as they nodded sluggishly. Unknowingly, they had been completely bewitched. Du Empire? Empress Ziwei questioned angrily. Su Yu, why did you stop me? Those snobbish fellows should be taught a lesson. Blood Guanyin was also furious. It was too humiliating. Su Yu said indifferently, let's not talk about whether the 4 of us can teach the 2 glazed crystal overlords a lesson if we join forces. Even if we can, what will the consequences be? Have you thought about it? Actually, they did not even have to think to know that they would be denied entry to the Du Empire forever. Even if the Du Empire knew that they were being treated unfairly, so what? Would the Du Empire punish the citizens of the Empire for the sake of the citizens of inferior civilizations? The answer was no. The fact that the 2 glazed crystal overlords were so unscrupulous was enough to explain the problem. No. I have to think of a way to reclaim my residence period, Empress Ziwei said indignantly. This was indeed a problem they had to face. It was impossible to rush to the Taishu faction in a month's time. I have a way, Blood Guanyin said. I once heard the chief cabinet master say that the residence period of some advanced civilizations can be increased, as long as they can contribute to the Du Empire. Su Yu's eyes flashed. For example? For example, you. Blood Guanyin looked at Su Yu with a smile. Chapter 1727. Blood Guanyin said, the civilization of the Du Empire is different from the civilization of the constellation Ocean. It is a unified civilization. The Eastern Imperial family, as the successor of the Diu Empire's creator, governs the entire civilization. It was equivalent to the civilization of the Diu Empire being completely controlled by a huge force. Every emperor of the Eastern royal family was wise and magnanimous. Generation after generation, they encouraged the citizens under their jurisdiction to do anything that was beneficial to the Diu Empire. They promoted the continuous development and strengthening of the empire's civilization. As a result, the Diu Empire rose from a starless civilization to a two-star civilization. In order to encourage the people of the empire to do things that are beneficial to the Diu Empire, the Eastern Imperial family specially created the contribution ranking, which is divided into the Heaven, Earth, Black, and Yellow lists. Blood Guanyin said, "Anyone who has done something beneficial to the civilization of the Diu Empire can enter the contribution ranking. The lowest is the Yellow ranking, which only records the first 20,000 people. The highest is the Heaven ranking. Those who are recorded on it have all made historical contributions to the rise and fall of the civilization of the Diu Empire," Blood Guanyin said. "And we only need to enter the Yellow ranking to get what we want. The Empire will reward those who enter the Yellow ranking. For example, the Contribution Hall of the Diu Empire. You can exchange it for anything you want. Even if you want to become a disciple of a strong person, as long as your contributions reach a certain level, the Diu Empire will definitely do it for you. So, if we can enter the Yellow ranking, we can ask the Diu Empire to extend our stay." Su Yu said calmly, "You said that the Yellow ranking only records the people of the Diu Empire. We are foreign residents, so we can't enter the Yellow ranking, right?" "Haha, this is the wisdom of the emperors of the Diu Empire. The Diu Empire also welcomes foreign residents to make contributions. We are also qualified to enter the Yellow ranking." Su Yu listened and said, "You want me to make some contributions to enter the Yellow ranking?" "Yes." Blood Guanyin looked at Su Yu with a smile. Su Yu spread his hands. "In the vast Diu Empire, there are as many strong people as there are clouds, and there are as many talented people as there are carps in the river. Being ranked 20,000 on the contribution ranking might seem like a backward position, but to be able to enter the top 20,000, one must have made great contributions. One must at least be a famous person to be qualified to fight for the Yellow ranking." Unexpectedly, Shui Guanyin laughed and said, "A famous person? Haha, there are 3 kings in the 10 great countries of the empire who are not on the Yellow list." A king was personally conferred by the Eastern royal family. He was in charge of a region on behalf of the royal family and had a high status and power. Out of the 10 kings, 3 have not entered the Huang ranking? Even such figures might not have a 100% chance of entering the Huang list, let alone ordinary people. The difficulty of entering the Huang list was beyond imagination. "Then why are you still counting on me?" Su Yu couldn't understand. Blood Guanyin chuckled and said, "That's why you have a chance." Su Yu was suspicious. Shui Guanyin said, "The Diu Empire is an ambitious civilization that actively develops civilizations. It is very passionate about communicating with other advanced civilizations. However, the language barrier between civilizations is the greatest obstacle. Therefore, the Diu Empire treats those who are proficient in the languages of the foreign races very well. If you're able to teach the Diu Empire a high-level civilized language, it would definitely be a contribution that would alarm the Eastern royal family. It would be more than enough for you to enter the Yellow roll." "That's it?" Su Yu realized how important it was to be proficient in all kinds of alien languages in the Great Beginning Realm. "Unfortunately, I don't understand the language of advanced civilizations," Su Yu said with a shrug. The lesson of the Flood Dragon Emperor was right in front of him. How could Su Yu casually expose his talent in the alien languages? Blood Guanyin was stunned. "Why are you doing this?" Judging by how Su Yu could easily manipulate the Heavenly Wings clan's meteor manipulation technique, he was definitely proficient in high-level alien languages. Just as she was about to persuade him, Su Yu said, "There's more than one way to enter the Huang list." Blood Guanyin was shocked. Apart from using the alien languages, Blood Guanyin couldn't understand what other way Su Yu could enter the Huang list. The difficulty of entering the Huang list was no less than taking first place at the ancient dream altar again. What method? Empress Ziwei was very curious. Apart from the alien languages, what other amazing methods did Su Yu have? Su Yu spat out the word. Empress Ziwei and Blood Guanyin were stunned. By a spot on the Huang list? How precious is a spot on the Huang list? Would someone sell it? The three of them found it hard to believe. Su Yu calmly said, "There are no deals in this world that cannot be made, only unequal bargaining chips. As long as we can offer enough attractive benefits, someone will naturally help us enter the Huang list." Su Yu's lips curled into a mysterious smile. A few days later, in the northern territory of the Great Yu dynasty, shocking news was spreading wildly in the black market. A mysterious outsider had exchanged a 10,000-year-old golden flames forbidden wood the length of his arm for a spot on the Huang list. The reason why the news was spreading wildly was not because someone was asking for a spot on the Huang list. Similar transactions had always existed in the black market. The reason for the frenzy was the 10,000-year-old golden flames forbidden wood. Normally, the golden flames forbidden wood would never live past 100 years. A 10,000-year-old one was unheard of. The item's demon-suppressing effect was fatally attractive to the divine warriors of heaven and earth. In addition, the market was extremely rare. Although the Great Yu civilization was vast, the number of times the golden flames forbidden wood had appeared was countless. In an instant, the black market in the northern territory was boiling over. In an inn somewhere in the fief, Su Yu was calmly cultivating. Empress Ziwei, Blood Guanyin, and the heartless Saber Emperor were restless. It was crazy. In just a few days, the communication jade scroll Su Yu had left in the black market was filled with all kinds of messages. Without exception, they were all about the golden flames forbidden wood. Some asked about its origins, some were willing to buy it at a high price, and some promised to help them enter the Huang list. Although they had not left the inn, they could occasionally feel some powerful probing eyes scanning the surroundings. Obviously, they had become the targets of the people in the black market. Empress Ziwei was a little angry. "Su Yu, look at you now. You haven't even made it to the Huang list, but you've gotten yourself into trouble." In fact, what annoyed her the most was that Su Yu had turned a deaf ear to someone who was willing to discuss a deal. 10 days had passed, and the messages in the Jade Scroll had only increased. But Su Yu's attitude was still unhurried. Finally, Empress Ziwei could not hold it in any longer and said seriously, "Su Yu, can you tell us what you are planning? 1/3 of the month has passed, but you are still not talking to the person who sent the message. We don't have time to delay." Blood Guanyin also cast an inquiring look. She was very willing to believe in Su Yu, but the current situation forced her to be anxious. As for the heartless Saber Emperor, he was already on the verge of losing his patience and wanted to act alone. Only then did Su Yu stop cultivating and say, "I'm waiting for someone." "Who?" Empress Ziwei raised her brows. "Someone who is really qualified to give me the right to enter the Huang list," Su Yu said calmly. Beep beep, at that moment, another message came from the Jade Scroll. Empress Ziwei glanced at it and was a little surprised. "It's the housekeeper of the Beixin mansion. As the housekeeper of the Beixin mansion, he is a righteous person on the surface, but he has the guts to participate in black market transactions. Isn't he afraid of being punished by the Beixin mansion?" Chapter 1728. Yes, the person he was waiting for was Prince Beixin. The area where the 10 kings of the Du Empire resided was under the jurisdiction of Prince Beixin. In the fief, Prince Beixin was one of the people who had the ability to help them enter the yellow list. Perhaps other influences could do it, but Prince Beixin was the only one they could trust. "Let's go and meet Prince Beixin." Su Yu finally stopped his training and stood up. Empress Ziwei's eyes shone. Meet him? You mean the butler is under Prince Beixin's orders? After thinking about it carefully, Empress Ziwei's eyes gradually brightened. No wonder a mere butler dares to participate in the black market trade. So that's why. Empress Ziwei suddenly understood. That butler was here on behalf of Prince Beixin. Soon, in the most famous tea-house in the Fief City, Forgotten Dust Pavilion. Forgotten Dust Pavilion was built by the second son of Prince Beixin, Bei Wangchun. Bei Wangchun was highly respected, and he was one of Prince Beixin's favorite sons. Many people thought he would inherit Prince Beixin's crown in 300 years. Many strong men from all over the world had visited him, hoping to be his guest behind the scenes. Once Bei Wangchun ascended to the throne, they would become veterans and receive endless benefit. Unfortunately, Bei Wangchun was very strict in selecting his guests. Many glazed crystal overlords came to visit him, but they couldn't even meet him. Even some peak overlords were rejected by Bei Wangchun. It was precisely because of this that the Forgotten Dust Pavilion that he had established by himself would often gather experts from all over the world who were depressed and frustrated. Rumor had it that Bei Wangchun would occasionally come to the Forgotten Dust Pavilion to discuss the world with the heroes of the world. The strong men who came here hoped to meet Bei Wangchun and be chosen by him. When they arrived at the Forgotten Dust Pavilion, it was not as lively as they had imagined. Instead, it was cold and desolate. There were only a few customers in the tea-house, sipping tea from time to time. It was different from what they had imagined. However, all of those customers were strong men. The weakest were silver overlords, and the strongest were glazed crystal overlords. They were the customers who had been waiting for Bei Wangchun. However, they were late. Bei Wangchun had just come a few days ago, and it would be a long time before he came again. That was why the tea-house was so cold today. That housekeeper has chosen an interesting place, Su Yu said indifferently. There was no doorman guarding the tea-house, so anyone could enter. But it was precisely because of this that those without sufficient strength would absolutely not rashly step foot into it. As soon as he entered the tea-house, all the customers were potential competitors. In an inn full of powerhouses, those without sufficient strength entering was no different from courting death. Just the powerful pressure emitted by a powerhouse was enough to make an ordinary person suffer. When Su Yu and the other three entered, they immediately felt several sharp and vigilant gazes. A powerful pressure came from all directions. Empress Ziwei was not afraid at all. She snorted coldly and dispersed the pressure. Blood Guanyin was also fearless. She casually waved her sleeves and her expression returned to normal. The heartless saber monarch's footsteps also swayed, but he quickly stabilized his body. However, Su Yu, whose cultivation was the lowest, walked in as if nothing had happened. As Su Yu possessed the heavenly orchid silver bamboo's fruit, any pressure that landed on his body would be absorbed and would not affect him in the slightest. According to the housekeeper, Su Yu was waiting in box 3. A box was a symbol of status. Not everyone had the qualifications to book a box in the Forgotten Dust Pavilion. Many glazed crystal overlords did not even have the qualifications to enter a box. When they arrived at box 3, there was already a waiter waiting at the door. "May I ask who you are?" the waiter asked. Su Yu took out the jade talisman with the housekeeper's message and said, "A guest." After a round of inspection, the waiter opened the door to the box, revealing a friendly and amiable smile. "Please enter." Su Yu and the others entered and saw a young woman of about 18 years of age sitting calmly in the box. She had an oval face, almond-shaped eyes, a sharp nose and red lips. She was dressed in plain clothes, like an ordinary mortal creature. Her appearance could not be considered beautiful, and her temperament was not outstanding. Her age was also much different from the housekeeper in Su Yu's imagination, but her entire person gave off an indescribable sense of comfort. Her eyes were facing the door, and she looked up immediately. She said calmly, "Please take a seat." Su Yu secretly sized up the woman. With a casual glance, he could not see through the woman's cultivation. However, Empress Ziwei's pupils shrank. Although she was exceptionally arrogant, there was a hint of surprise on her face. No one would have expected that the housekeeper of the Beixin King's mansion would be a young girl. She went straight to the point and asked directly, "Where is the item?" Su Yu took out a crystal. The young girl frowned slightly. "Are you teasing me?" "Before you speak, you might as well take a look at the crystal first," Su Yu said. The young girl hesitated for a moment, then grabbed the crystal and touched it with her delicate little finger. Immediately, an image burst forth. In the image, Su Yu held a piece of golden flames forbidden wood in his hand, put it into a storage device, and then buried the storage device underground. The image stopped abruptly, but it did not show where exactly it was. The young girl's slightly furrowed brows relaxed, and she raised her eyes to look at Su Yu. "As expected, you are cautious." With Su Yu's cautiousness, it was naturally impossible for him to bring the golden flames forbidden wood with him to visit in person. After all, one of the parties to the transaction was the powerful Beixin King's mansion. What if the Beixin King's mansion killed him and robbed him? However, you can rest assured that the Beixin King's mansion has always valued fairness. Since you really have the rumored item in the black market, then what should be given to you will naturally be given to you, the young girl said concisely. After that, she immediately clapped her hand. "Come in." Swish. The light and shadow behind her suddenly distorted, and a transparent figure slowly appeared. Seeing this, Su Yu's pupils constricted. Space distortion? That transparent figure was a space divine path expert. Empress Ziwei's expression changed, and she said cautiously, "A half-step divine warrior of heaven and earth." The distorted transparent figure ignored them and bowed to the young girl. The young girl said indifferently, "Give them the prepared item." Plop! The distorted figure nodded, and with a flick of his finger, a bloody, hideous head floated in the air in front of Su Yu's dead body. It was a creature that exuded extreme evil energy. Even though it was dead, its pale eyes still lingered with ferocious energy, making people feel extremely uneasy. What was even more shocking was that, judging from the purity of the remaining divine energy in the head, it was also a half-step divine warrior of heaven and earth. When he saw the true face of the head, Su Yu was slightly moved. The 100th wanted criminal of the Diu civilization, Xie Lang? Xie Lang had been famous for a long time. As early as 60,000 years ago, his name had shaken the Diu Empire. He plotted to capture a princess of the Eastern royal family, and after deceiving her, he refined her into a special human-shaped elixir and ate it. With that, he broke through the shackles and leaped from a peak overlord to a half-step divine warrior of heaven and earth. At that time, the emperor of the empire was furious and ordered Xie Lang to be captured and killed. However, Xie Lang was very cautious, good at sensing, and extremely cunning. The empire had organized 3 assassination operations involving the divine warriors of heaven and earth, but Xie Lang had successfully escaped each time. Now, 60,000 years had passed, and he was still at large. From time to time, he would commit evil deeds, and his methods were bloody and cruel. Unexpectedly, Xie Lang was dead. Who killed him? Even the divine warriors of heaven and earth had failed to kill him. The person who could kill Xie Lang must be very powerful. As a wanted criminal of the 100th rank, if you carry his head, you will be able to enter the top 10,000 of the yellow list. The young lady said, "We have fulfilled your request. So, where is the golden flames forbidden wood buried?" Su Yu placed the evil wolf's head in the wooden box calmly, then passed it to Shuiguanin. Only then did he say, "They can leave first. I will stay behind. After they successfully deliver the head to the Contribution Great Hall, I will inform you." The young lady was a little displeased. "You do not trust the Beixin Manor?" Su Yu's gaze flickered. "I do not trust you. The Beixin Manor was trustworthy, but the housekeeper of the manor might not." The young lady sighed. All right, please hurry. Shui Guanyin hesitated for a moment, then took the head. Once it is done, I will inform you immediately. Once the 4 of them successfully entered the yellow list, it would be useless for the young lady to regret her decision. The Contribution Palace was a direct organization of the Dew Empire. It was located in any of the fiefdoms. Even the kings had no authority to interfere. Shui Guanyin and the others carried the head and went to report. Su Yu, Shui Guanyin, Empress Ziwei, and the heartless Saber Emperor worked together to kill Xie Lang. The Contribution Palace would evaluate their contributions and determine their ranking. Inside the private room, Su Yu waited calmly. The young lady closed her eyes, not saying another word. She pretended that Su Yu was not in the room. Su Yu could not be bothered to speak. He waited quietly. Not long after, Shui Guanyin's message came. They had successfully entered the yellow list. All right, the deal is complete, Su Yu said. The young lady opened her eyes. Where is the golden flames forbidden wood? Su Yu smiled. I don't have it. Slap. The young lady slammed her palm on the table. You dare trick me? Or do you think it will be difficult for the Beixin Manor to kill 4 foreign residents? Ha ha. Su Yu laughed. He took out a piece of golden flames forbidden wood and placed it on the table. He then left. He had not hidden it anywhere. It had been on him all along. That crystal from before was just a decoy. The young lady was stunned. She could not wrap her head around it. She muttered to herself, the most dangerous place is the safest place? No one would think that he would carry the golden flames forbidden wood with him, right? Even she was not an exception. 7th Princess, this person is teasing you. Do you want me to? The distorted figure said in a deep, hoarse, and powerful voice. The young lady shook her head. She held the golden flames forbidden wood. This person is interesting. It would be a pity to kill him. What's more, his cultivation is too low. He could not become Brother Wangchen's guest. It would be a pity to abandon him. It would be tasteless. The young lady sighed. The distorted figure mocked. If this person knew that he had missed the chance to become Prince Qin Yu's guest, would he be troubled and depressed for the rest of his life? Shaking her head, the young lady said, Let's go. Leave the golden flames forbidden wood to Brother Wangchen. Let's go see his new guest. Xie Lang was killed by this person alone. It's amazing. The distorted figure nodded. He is indeed a rare talent. I remember that his name is Zhan Wushuang? The young lady nodded and floated away. In the contribution hall, Shui Guanyin and the other 2 had finally seen Su Yu. Here for you. Shui Guanyin handed Su Yu an identity nameplate made of special minerals. The name Su Yu was engraved on it. The word Huang was engraved on the back. It was a yellow-ranked identity nameplate. Haha, we are now the most valued top 10,000 contributors of the Deyu Empire. Shui Guanyin was pleased. We can exchange for many things in the contribution hall. Let's try it now. Empress Ziwei had been looking forward to it for a long time. She went straight to the exchange office in the contribution hall. There were not many people at the exchange office. Everyone could be seen clearly at a glance. Empress Ziwei immediately noticed a familiar figure. It's you. Empress Ziwei's expression was cold. The person looked old and was dressed in a black robe. He was the inspection officer at the entrance of the Dew Empire. Hearing something strange, the black-robed elder turned his head and immediately recognized Empress Ziwei and the others. She was so beautiful that it was easy for people to remember her. The black-robed elder was not surprised to see them here. He looked at the 4 of them and said, You will be expelled in 5 days. Don't do anything stupid. Empress Ziwei was furious. Isn't it all your fault? If not for him, they would have left for the Great Void Sect long ago. Why would they wait until now? Ha ha! The black-robed elder laughed disdainfully and ignored her. He walked forward lazily and took out a black token. The word Xianji was engraved on it. It was his lifeblood. The black token was an ordinary contribution nameplate outside the heaven, earth, profound, and yellow contribution halls. Senior, you are an honorable high-grade black iron contributor with 3,000 contribution points. What would you like to exchange for? The shopkeeper at the exchange office was very polite. As a contribution hall branch, most of the people here were low-grade black iron contributors. A small number were mid-grade black iron contributors. High-grade black iron contributors were few and far between. Xianji was a top-notch VIP. Exchange for 2 heavenly essence pills, Xianji said calmly. His expression was calm, but it was not hard to hear his sense of superiority. The people nearby also looked at him enviously. As expected of Lord Xianji, heavenly essence pills are high-grade divine pills that can only be exchanged for 100 contribution points, and he got 2 at once. Sigh, he is one of the top 1,000 contributors in the Northern Envelope land. He can rank in the top 100,000 in the entire Du Empire. Such a big shot can casually exchange for some heavenly essence pills. After successfully exchanging for 2 heavenly essence pills, the black-robed elder walked out with his hands clasped behind his back. As he passed by Su Yu and the others, he glanced at them out of the corner of his right eye. His disdain could not be stronger. Empress Ziwei could not hold it in any longer, but she obeyed Su Yu's warning and did not act recklessly. Rolling her eyes, Empress Ziwei strode to the counter. She held the nameplate in her hand and slammed it on the counter. I heard that you can exchange for anything at the exchange office? The shopkeeper said expressionlessly, this is only for the contributors of the 4 great lists. Ordinary contributors have limited exchanges. His attention was still focused on Xianji, who had yet to leave. He did not notice that Empress Ziwei had casually replied to him with the nameplate she had slammed. Fine, I want to exchange for one thing now. Empress Ziwei laughed coldly. I want you to remove that old thing, Xianji, from his official position. Actually, she could have asked the contribution hall to punish him. Why did she only ask for his official position to be removed? She probably had other plans. The shopkeeper came to his senses and shouted angrily, Shut up, don't offend. Chapter 1729. Yellow List. The shopkeeper was shocked. The Huang ranking, one of the 4 major contribution rankings. With a shiver, the shopkeeper immediately walked around the counter and bowed respectfully. Greetings, my lord. All those who entered the Huang rankings were people who had made great contributions to the Diyu dynasty. They had extraordinary statuses and were revered by others. A small shopkeeper was naturally a level lower in front of a yellow roll examiner. The corners of Empress Ziwei's lips curled upwards. How about it? Do I have the qualifications to fulfill the requirements I just mentioned? The shopkeeper revealed an awkward expression and said hesitantly, Sir, can you change your request? Empress Ziwei raised her brows, and her expression turned cold. What? How could the contribution hall reject the request of a Huang ranking contributor? Is it because I'm an extraterrestrial being? No, I wouldn't dare, it's just that. The shopkeeper was in a difficult position. How could Xianji not have a backer if he was able to become an important immigration inspector? He was the son of Prince Bei Xian, one of the guests behind the scenes of Bei Wangchun. JK JHJ 8UI6. Y equals GEI 9O. Empress Ziwei sneered coldly. Rumor has it that the Great Yu Civilization's monarch is trying his best to rule the Great Yu Civilization and invited beings from other civilizations to contribute. It turns out that he only wants them to contribute and doesn't allow them to exchange for the rewards they deserve. What a joke. I will publicize this matter and let the living beings from the outside see the true face of the Great Yu Civilization. Hearing this, the manager immediately begged for mercy. Madam, please spare this lowly officer. Please don't. If I cause any repercussions and the dynasty investigates this matter, even if I have 10 heads, it will not be enough. The Diyu Empire, which prided itself on welcoming living beings from other civilizations, had the scandal of the yellow roll contributors not being able to exchange for their items. What would the other living beings from other civilizations think? Once it caused a bad influence, as the main culprit, the shopkeeper would definitely be held accountable by the Eastern royal family. Then what are you waiting for? Empress Ziwei flicked the nameplate with her finger and said coldly. The shopkeeper bitterly clenched his teeth and looked at Xianji. Please wait. Xianji had already walked to the entrance of the redemption hall, and he heard everything that was happening behind him. Knowing that Su Yu and the other three had become members of the yellow list after 10 days, they were as shocked as they could be. However, Xianji was enraged when he heard Empress Ziwei's request. Turning his head, Xianji scolded angrily, I'm Dynasty's prosecutor, responsible for the peace of Dynasty. I've been working diligently for many years and have made countless contributions to Dynasty. You're just a barbarian from a non-star civilization. What right do you have to remove me from my position? Empress Ziwei ignored him and stared at the shopkeeper. What are you waiting for? The shopkeeper sighed helplessly and said with an indifferent expression on his face, Xianji, as the exchange officer of the Contribution Points Exchange Office, I'm informing you that due to the request of the 1030th Huang leaderboard member, you have to submit your resignation within 5 days. Scram! Xianji was so angry that his face turned red. I'm a meritorious subject of the Du Empire. What right does a foreign barbarian have to decide my fate? The position of prosecutor was an official position that he had worked hard to obtain. Because of this, who knew how many grudges had been formed and how great of a price had they paid? But now it was like a bolt from the blue. His official position was actually revoked? The shopkeeper frowned. The prestige of the contribution hall cannot be challenged. He returned to the counter and opened the huge communication crystal ball hidden deep inside the counter. He sent a message into it. The contribution hall of the Duke of Beixin's fief requests to forcefully execute the request of the 1030th Huang leaderboard member and remove Xianji from all his official positions. This crystal ball was directly connected to the Eastern royal family. There were members of the royal family who were responsible for handling such information. Xianji was enraged. How dare you, crack! Almost at this moment, a muffled sound came from Xianji's chest. He stretched out his hand and took out a nameplate that had shattered into thumb-sized pieces. That was his official nameplate. Now that it had shattered, it meant that he had been stripped of his official position as the border prosecutor. In just a few breaths, Xianji was personally removed from his official position by the Eastern royal family. Xianji was at a loss. He had a feeling that everything was unreal. He almost suspected that he was dreaming. Honorable Lord, what other requests do you have? The shopkeeper cast a pitiful gaze at Xianji. In the Du civilization where contributions were king, whoever contributed more would be the undefeatable king. With a single thought, one could control the fate of a low-level contributor. Xianji could get whatever he wanted in the Beixin monarch's fief, but so what? A yellow roll contributor could take away his most precious official position with a single thought. Empress Ziwei sneered coldly. So this old thing is just a normal citizen? Yes, the shopkeeper replied. Empress Ziwei clenched her fists and bumped them together. A cold smile appeared on her face. Then, as an outsider, attacking him is not against any of the Du civilization's laws? The shopkeeper was surprised. Yes. Xianji came to his senses and happened to hear this. He was enraged. Barbarian, what else do you want? She had stripped him of his official position, yet she still wanted to attack him? She was going too far. However, he had never thought about how he had gone too far when he had made things difficult for them when he had just entered the realm. You keep calling me a barbarian. As a barbarian, I really want to see just how strong a civilized person like you is. Empress Ziwei raised her brows as she quickly formed a seal with her hands. Meteorite ice tribulation. An icy planet wrapped in terrifying cold air descended with a loud rumble. Xianzhi laughed angrily. A mere golden overlord dares to attack me? You overestimate yourself. He formed a seal with his hands and also unleashed a powerful divine technique. Pound! The two techniques collided and annihilated each other. Xianzhi abruptly retreated 3 steps and spat out a mouthful of divine blood. The divine blood was completely frozen, just like his body, which was covered in frost. Shock appeared in his eyes. He had unleashed his full power, but he was injured instead. Barbarian, no wonder you dare to be so arrogant. So you have something to rely on, Xianzhi shouted. But so what? What can you do to me? However, a mocking smile appeared on Empress Ziwei's face as she said in a low voice, "Explode." Boom. The fragments of the icy star, which had already been destroyed, suddenly exploded. Terrifying cold air gushed out from within, pouring out in torrent. Xianzhi was caught off guard, and his entire body was frozen by the frost energy, turning him into an ice sculpture. Hee, so this is a civilized person? Empress Ziwei walked over and said mockingly, "You're nothing more than this. Piss off." Empress Ziwei shouted as she kicked the ice sculpture away. Bang! Xianzhi was kicked out of the palace and into the bustling market. The spectators were all shocked. That stunning woman, which star civilization did she come from? A golden overlord defeated a mystic crystal overlord like Xianzhi. Unbelievable! She's from a non-star civilization. How can this be? How did a non-star civilization give birth to such a powerful female prodigy? She's almost comparable to the 9 great void hidden dragons of Bei Xian territory. Great Void Hidden Dragon was the highest honor obtained by the younger generation of Bei Xian territory. Every 100 years, the monarch of Bei Xian's fief would select the 9 strongest prodigies and grant them the title of Great Void Hidden Dragon. Once they became a Great Void Hidden Dragon, they would be fought over by all the forces in the fief. Even the princes of the monarch of Bei Xian would keep throwing olive branches at them. Empress Ziwei's performance was stunning, and she received unanimous approval. Xianzhi lost all face under everyone's gaze, and he shouted angrily, "A bunch of barbarians, just you wait, I'll make sure you all die a horrible death." As Bei Wangchen's guest behind the scenes, he believed that Bei Wangchen would not stand by and watch such humiliation. "Hey!" Ignoring the gazes of the crowd, Empress Ziwei returned. As she passed by Su Yu, she complained, "Why did you stand by and watch?" Su Yu replied calmly, "Isn't it enough for you to handle it alone?" In his eyes, a pair of silvery white pupils slowly disappeared, and no one paid attention to them. If Empress Ziwei had been in danger just now, he would have been the next one to strike. Humph! Flicking her hair, Empress Ziwei said proudly, "I really wonder if your high combat power is real." Su Yu was speechless, and he walked to the counter silently. "I'd like to exchange for a 1-year stay." Su Yu took out his yellow list nameplate. The shopkeeper said respectfully, "Dear customer, according to the rules, foreign residents who obtain the yellow list nameplate will automatically renew their stay for 10 years, and there's no need to exchange for it again. Is that so? That saves me some trouble." "All right." Su Yu waved his hand and led Empress Ziwei and the other 2 out of the contribution hall. They arrived at the remote inn where they usually stayed. Along the way, many unknown forces tailed them, but they managed to shake them off. Inside the inn, the 4 of them sat in a circle. Su Yu sighed. "We've wasted 10 days to get to the point. Everyone, please take out the jade pieces given to us by the chief pavilion master." 4 jade pieces were taken out and placed together. The jade pieces contained information about the cauldron that the chief pavilion master wanted. After reading the information, the expressions of the 4 of them changed, becoming very serious. Empress Ziwei was a little surprised. "The chief pavilion master wants us to infiltrate the Taishu faction and steal their treasure, the Beixin royal cauldron?" Rumor had it that the first emperor of the Eastern Kingdom built the Dayu civilization. In order to stabilize the fate of the nation, he gathered the stars of the 9 heavens and forged 10 royal cauldrons, which were distributed in the 10 great fiefdoms of the Dayu Empire. The royal cauldron in the Beishin fiefdom was the Beishin royal cauldron, which stabilized the fate of the nation. The chief pavilion master wanted them to steal the cauldron? Needless to say, the importance of the 10 royal cauldrons was obvious. Each one was bound to be protected by a powerful force. It would be extremely difficult to steal the royal cauldrons. Shui Guanin's expression was a little ugly. Just reaching the Taishu faction is already fraught with danger, and the probability of success is extremely low. How is it possible for us to steal the royal cauldrons? The merciless Saber Emperor's face was as pale as paper. The Beishin royal cauldron. It's impossible. I once heard my father say that every royal cauldron is personally guarded by a king, and the strength of any king is no less than the divine warriors of heaven and earth. The merciless Saber Emperor was close to despair. Unless we have the strength to fight the divine warriors of heaven and earth, there is no hope. Looking at the jade pieces, everyone remembered that the chief pavilion master had each sealed one of his divine techniques in it. Now that they thought about it, it might have been used to steal the royal cauldrons. Suyu also felt that it would be difficult, but he had promised the chief pavilion master that he would do his best to help. If we plan carefully, we might be able to succeed, Suyu said. Empress Ziwei believed his words for no reason and blurted out, "What plan do you have?" When she came to her senses, she turned her face away and snorted. "Don't think I will believe you." Suyu was already used to her attitude. He said to himself, "There is too little information at hand to plan in detail. I believe that once we reach the Taishu faction, there might be enough information to use." Blood Guanin's white and tender ears shook. Hearing that Suyu was planning to plot again, she was a little excited. The Taishu faction is located in the southernmost part of the fief. There is a door that runs through the void and the Dayu Empire, so it is called the Taishu faction. Outside the door is the Dayu Empire, and inside the door is a lone island. The island is surrounded by nothingness, and only the Taishu faction can reach it. The lone island claims to be one entity, undisturbed by the outside world. It is extremely rich in spiritual objects, nurturing many powerful ferocious beasts, and also a powerful living creature, the bloodline of the Beishin king. Hearing this, Suyu suddenly understood. Behind the Taishu faction was the ancestral land of the Beishin king. It is said that the Beishin royal cauldron was placed on that lone island, guarded by the retired Beishin kings. Blood Guanin explained everything she knew in detail. After listening, Suyu said, "Then let's go to the Taishu faction first, and then plot the royal cauldron behind the door." The 4 of them discussed it on the spot. There were only 2 ways to reach the Taishu faction. One was the Ghost Marsh, which people said was a place of no return. The other was the Cloud Ladder to the Heavenly Realm. The Ghost Swamp had existed for a very long time. Its birth was due to a huge internal strife in the past. The Great Yu civilization absorbed many foreign civilizations, and one of them was called the Green Ghost civilization. After tens of thousands of years, everyone thought that the Green Ghost civilization had been assimilated. Who would have thought that the leader of the Green Ghost civilization would lead the Green Ghost civilization to rebel, attempting to overthrow the Eastern royal family and take control of the entire Great Yu civilization? It turned out that the Green Ghost civilization had been plotting this ever since they joined the Great Yu civilization. They wanted to take over the Great Yu civilization and allow the Green Ghost civilization to digest the Great Yu civilization and become a 2.5-star civilization. They quickly occupied 1/3 of the Dayu Empire's territory, and their momentum was extremely great. The Eastern royal family mobilized the entire nation's power to besiege the Green Ghost civilization. In this battle, the terrifying foundation of the Eastern royal family was revealed. The Green Ghost civilization couldn't even withstand a single blow and was forced to retreat. The leader of the Green Ghost civilization, the Green Ghost Emperor, and the core members of the civilization were trapped in the 100,000 Mountains and mercilessly suppressed by the Eastern royal family. Their corpses shattered, and their divine blood flooded the 100,000 Mountains. As time passed, the divine blood corroded the 100,000 Mountains, turning them into a muddy swamp. Occasionally, living creatures would pass by, and they would often hear horrifying ghost cries and see blurry ghostly shadows. Furthermore, very few of those who entered the swamp were able to return. Therefore, the swamp was called the Ghost Swamp. The Ghost Swamp was vast and covered almost half of the northern land. The Great Void Gate was located in the center of the Ghost Swamp. To travel on land, the only way was to cross the Ghost Swamp. The Cloud Ladder had an even more ancient origin. It was set up by the first king of the Great U civilization. It was a cloud ladder that led directly to the Great Void Gate. All the living creatures stepped on light clouds and headed to the Great Void Gate. Along the way, the cloud ladder would pass by an ancient city in the clouds. There were all kinds of unimaginable traps and dangerous places in the city. They were all set up by the first king of the Great Void Gate and were extremely powerful. Ordinary people couldn't pass through at all. Even the descendants of King Baishin might not be able to avoid all the trap. The degree of danger was no less than that of the Ghost Swamp. After analyzing the situation, Su Yu and the other three chose to travel through the Ghost Swamp. The reason was simple. Compared to the traps and dangerous places, the dangers in the Ghost Swamp gave them more room to maneuver. Their combined strength was more suitable for the Ghost Swamp. After the discussion, the four of them set off immediately. However, as soon as they left the inn, they were stopped by a group of guards in embroidered robes. Su Yu was familiar with one of them. "We meet again." A clear, elegant, and condescending voice fell into Su Yu's ears. Su Yu glanced at her and said, "Housekeeper of the King Baishin's mansion, why are you stopping us?" The young lady nodded. "I have a gift for you." She clapped her hands, and the distorted light figure appeared again, holding a wooden box with both hands. "This is for you." The young lady flicked her fingers, and the wooden box opened, revealing the item within. It was a fresh head that was dripping with blood. When the four of them saw the head, their pupils constricted at the same time. Chapter 1730. The girl shifted her gaze to Empress Ziwei, ignoring Su Yu. "To be precise, the gift is for you," the girl said with a smile. Empress Ziwei's eyes were cold. "I didn't kill him. Of course, if you want to frame me, I'll admit it. What do you want? Say it." A powerful aura was released from Empress Ziwei's body. She was fearless even though she was protected by a half-step emperor. Clap, clap. The girl clapped her hands, her eyes full of praise. "Your courage is commendable, and your strength is even rarer. I was wrong to not realize that you are such an expert." "So?" Empress Ziwei crossed her arms and said with hostility. The girl smiled. "So, on behalf of Crown Prince Bei Wangchun, I invite you to join him." Hearing that, Blood Guanyin and Heartless Saber Emperor were shocked. In the past 10 days, they had fully understood Bei Wangchun's status in the fief. He was only one step away from being crowned as a king. All the strong men crowned as kings were willing to follow Bei Wangchun's orders, including the half-step emperor. However, Bei Wangchun was very picky, and few people could catch his eye. Hearing that Empress Ziwei was invited, they were shocked and envious, but also relieved. Perhaps the shocking potential she displayed when she defeated Xian Ji had alarmed the legendary Bei Wangchun, and he asked this butler to persuade her to join her. Such an olive branch was something that many top overlords in the fief wished for. However, Empress Ziwei's face was cold. She said lightly, "Then why did you kill Xian Ji?" The girl smiled. "Bei Wangchun heard that Xian Ji offended you, so he asked him to come and apologize." "Apologize with a head?" Bei Wangchun was so cold. Empress Ziwei stared at the head and sneered. "If I offend someone more outstanding than me one day, Will Bei Wangchun send my head to him as an apology to please him? Bei Wangchun invited me to join him in such a way. Did he not use his brain? The girl was slightly startled. After a while, she sighed. You are a resident of an extraterrestrial civilization, so you don't understand Bei Wangchen's status in the fief. In other words, if it were someone else, they would have taken the same risk to join him. Empress Ziwei sneered. The young girl stared at her for a while, but didn't get an answer for a long time. She said, So, you don't agree? I agree. To everyone's surprise, Empress Ziwei agreed. Blood Guanyin frowned. Empress Ziwei, you want to abandon the Sea of Constellation civilization? Heartless Saber Monarch panicked and asked, Are you not going to the gate of the Great Void? The incident was so sudden that it truly caught everyone off guard. The young girl gave the distorted figure a meaningful glance, and the other party immediately released a pressure that was close to that of an emperor, enveloping Blood Guanyin and Heartless Saber Monarch, rendering them speechless. Your choice won't be wrong. The girl smiled brightly. Empress Ziwei said, Wait, I have a request. Speak. The young girl said. I'm going to the Great Void Gate, Empress Ziwei said firmly. The young lady replied without hesitation, No problem. Bei Wangchen will send a group of people to the Great Void sect in the near future. You can join them. Which way? Cloud ladder. The young lady said slowly. The bloodline of King Bei Xin knows many of the traps and dangers in the city amongst the clouds. It is far less dangerous than the Ghost Swamp. Empress Ziwei looked at Su Yu and said, I want all three of them to join us. The young lady did not even look at Su Yu and the others, calmly saying, This request cannot be fulfilled. Why? Empress Ziwei frowned. The young lady said, Bei Wangchen only accepts useful people. Useless people are not worthy of Bei Wangchen's care, even if it is because of you. She spoke bluntly, not caring that Su Yu and the others were present. Both Blood Guanyin and Heartless Saber Monarch were furious. This woman. All right, I'm very happy to hear that. Empress Ziwei broke into a smile. Her cold face blossomed into a smile that stunned even the young lady. She looked at Su Yu provocatively. Our paths will be different from now on. Goodbye, comrades, ha ha ha. After saying this, she followed the young lady and gradually disappeared into the crowd, not even looking back. The distorted figure looked at the three of them and said indifferently, Go where you should go. She is no longer one of you. One had been chosen by a king from a 2.5-star civilization, while the other three remained the same. Their fates were just as Empress Ziwei had said. Their paths would be different from now on. With a swift movement, the distorted figure disappeared. With the pressure lifted, Shui Guanyin trembled with anger. That despicable ice woman betrayed us. The merciless Saber Emperor had a sorrowful expression. How are we going to explain this to the Sea of Constellations when we return? Empress Ziwei has betrayed us and joined the Great Yu civilization. Su Yu, who had been silent all this while, said after a moment of silence, Let's go. Shui Guanyin said, Aren't you angry? Angry about what? Su Yu asked. Angry that we were abandoned like useless trash? No. Shui Guanyin's eyes were filled with anger. In fact, this was the real reason she was angry. In the Sea of Constellations, she did not think much of it. Empress Ziwei was first, and she was second. Their treatment was not that different, and they were respected everywhere. But in the Great Yu civilization, the difference in treatment was immediately apparent. She was still the pride of the heavens, while Shui Guanyin was merely a useless person in the eyes of the housekeeper of the Beixin mansion. The great humiliation caused her to feel agitated. Su Yu calmly said, The so-called pride of heaven is just a few steps ahead of the ordinary people. If you remain stubborn, you will be surpassed and left behind by the ordinary people sooner or later. Shui Guanyin bit her lip, her eyes misty. Thank you, Brother Su Yu. I understand. She had always relied on the natural blood lotus, and her vision had always been limited to the Sea of Constellations. She was satisfied with being second, and had never tried to surpass a higher level. On the other hand, Empress Ziwei was proud and arrogant. She had always tried to climb to a higher level, with no end in sight. If she wanted to surpass Empress Ziwei, she had to change. Let's go, the plan remains the same. Cross the ghost swamp. Shui Guanyin nodded, her eyes burning with a strong will to fight. Yes, it is time to change. I must be stronger than the traitor Empress Ziwei. Su Yu was silent, thinking to himself, traitor? I don't think so. He looked up at the sky, and a giant heavenly eye gradually disappeared. Under the heavenly eye, he could clearly see the peak overlords slowly retreating from all directions of the inn. Ambush from all directions. They were clearly not here to protect the young girl, but to surround her and prevent her from escaping. If Empress Ziwei had not agreed, the outcome would not have been so peaceful. If a genius could not be controlled by oneself, and could not fall into the hands of the enemy, the best solution was to eliminate her. Su Yu and the others would naturally be silenced as well. It was because she had sensed the ambush that the proud Empress Ziwei was willing to lower her head and be used by others. Su Yu's impression of her changed greatly. Cloud Ladder, I hope her journey goes smoothly, Su Yu said to himself. High above the clouds, the young girl stepped on a light cloud, flying side by side with Empress Ziwei toward Bei Wangchen's mansion. Miss Ziwei, I believe your choice will make you feel blessed. At the mention of Bei Wangchen, the young girl's face involuntarily revealed a proud expression. Empress Ziwei pondered and did not respond. The young girl smiled sweetly. Are you still thinking about your companions? To be honest, they do not deserve to be your companions. You are born to be superior to them. She was very certain of this. Is that so? Empress Ziwei said calmly. You are very confident in yourself, including your judgment. The young girl said calmly, am I wrong? At least I found a talent like you who has the potential to ascend to the great void hidden dragon. Hee. Empress Ziwei laughed mockingly. So, you actually know nothing. The young girl's face was calm, but she was a little displeased. Miss Ziwei, if you have something to say, just say it. Empress Ziwei smiled. I'm afraid you won't be able to accept it if I say it. Say it. The young girl frowned. Empress Ziwei sneered. What I want to say is, you really have no vision. Among the four of us, the most talented one is regarded as useless by you, yet you have to settle for me. How laughable, how pathetic. The young girl stared at Empress Ziwei. Among the three of them, is there anyone stronger than you? The woman with the blood lotus under her feet, or the young man with the giant blade on his back? Empress Ziwei couldn't be bothered to reply. The young girl said confidently, if it's them, then it's a pity. The former is indeed not bad, but only not bad. As for the latter, forgive me for being blunt, he's just a good-for-nothing. Empress Ziwei said leisurely, you forgot about the last person. That slightly clever man? The young girl said disapprovingly, in my opinion, he's the most useless person among you. With the cultivation of a bronze overlord, doesn't he feel like he's a burden? Empress Ziwei couldn't help but laugh. So you know nothing. His battle prowess is 10 times stronger than mine. The young girl's eyes widened. Are you sure you're not talking nonsense? Your strength is equivalent to an early-stage mystic crystal overlord. If he's 10 times stronger than you, doesn't that mean he's comparable to a peak overlord? Shaking her head, the young lady said in disbelief, I've seen demon-level geniuses before. Golden Overlord cultivators have the strength of Pinnacle Overlord. It's not that I don't believe you, it's just that you're too crazy. Hee. Empress Ziwei smiled and said nothing. Her expression made the young girl skeptical. She pondered for a while and said, Go back and invite him here. The distorted figure beside her was about to move. Empress Ziwei smiled proudly. Little girl, do you think you're so smart? He doesn't know there are people lying in ambush everywhere. In his eyes, your little tricks are nothing more than the most inferior little tricks. Right now, he has already gone far away without leaving any traces. The young girl's expression turned slightly cold. She said coldly, "What are you waiting for?" "Yes." The distorted figure disappeared and soon returned. He said, "There are no traces left, including his aura." It was as Empress Ziwei said. The young girl was like a prideful lion that was provoked and finally became angry. She glared at Empress Ziwei. "You didn't tell me earlier because you didn't sincerely join Bei Wangchen's background?" Empress Ziwei snorted disdainfully. "No one in my world can make me submit willingly. The Bei Wangchen you speak of is the same." "You!" The young girl was slightly angry. "Ignorant woman, don't insult Bei Wangchen. His excellence is something you can only look up to." "Hee." Empress Ziwei sneered nonchalantly. The young girl said coldly, "Fine, there are many people like you who don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. They used to look down on Bei Wangchen, but after seeing him with their own eyes, they all wholeheartedly submitted to him. You are no exception." "Is that so?" Empress Ziwei smiled proudly. Chapter 1731. 3 months passed by in a flash. Su Yu and the others used the bronze carriage to finally enter the Ghost Marsh after a long journey. The Ghost Marsh was filled with ghostly energy. From time to time, grotesque ghosts would appear, ready to devour anyone. Whoosh! Blood Guanyin took a deep breath. She waved her hand and recalled the 9 lotus seed clones. Compared to the lotus seed clones of the past, their cultivation levels were slightly stronger, and they were more adept with each other. "Brother Su Yu, how is it?" Blood Guanyin asked the bronze carriage. The bronze carriage door opened and Su Yu stepped out. He looked at the corpses of the ghosts on the ground, pleased. 3 months of actual combat, and your abilities have improved a lot. After being provoked by Empress Ziwei, Blood Guanyin seemed to have become a different person. She was no longer as calm as before, and took the initiative to attack, fighting all kinds of ghosts alone. In the past 3 months, her fighting abilities had skyrocketed. Preliminary estimates indicated that she had reached 10,000 fighting points. Blood Guanyin's eyes shone with joy. She clenched her fists. "This is far from enough. I have to continue working hard until I surpass that hateful Empress Ziwei." The heartless Saber Emperor pouted. What was a little bit of improvement? As long as he had the jade pendant from the chief cabinet master, no one could do anything to him unless he encountered a divine warrior of heaven and earth. Let's call it a day. Recuperate and digest what you have gained today. Leave the rest of the ghosts to me. Su Yu swiped his palm, retrieving a 3-foot-long sword burning with golden flames from his space ring. The body of the sword was densely covered in wooden veins, emitting a refreshing fragrance. It retained the characteristics of the original material, looking like it had just been forged. This was the new weapon Su Yu had forged in the past 3 months, the Golden Flames Forbidden Wood Sword. Unlike before, this Golden Flames Forbidden Wood Sword was made from the core of a 10,000-year-old Golden Flames Forbidden Wood. The ability to ward off demons and evil was 5 times stronger than the rest of the sword. Looking at the densely packed ghosts in front of him, Su Yu casually waved his sword. Revolving demonic moon style. A golden sword energy swept out like a crescent moon. The golden light illuminated the vast swamp ahead. The ghosts that poked their heads out were instantly wiped out by the golden light. In the blink of an eye, the path in front of the bronze carriage was flattened by the sword. Shui Guanyin said enviously, "Brother Su Yu is so powerful. The power of one sword is at least comparable to 3 of my divine technique." Su Yu said, "I'm just relying on the special evil-warding property of the Golden Flames Forbidden Wood. It's not worth mentioning." After pausing for a moment, Su Yu said, "You must wear the protective bracelet that I gave you at all times. Ordinary ghosts won't be able to approach it easily." Hearing this, the Blood Guanyin raised her snow-white arm. A golden flame bracelet hung on it. Gold and white intersected, it was very dazzling. "I will treasure the gift from Brother Su Yu for the rest of my life. the blood Guanyin said crisply. The bracelet was made by Su Yu using the remaining tree cores. His original intention was to give her some defense against sneak attacks from ghosts. Unexpectedly, blood Guanyin misunderstood something. Cough, cough. Let's continue moving forward. We should be able to reach the center of the ghost swamp soon. Once we pass through there, we will not be far from the Great Void faction. Su Yu changed the topic. As expected, Shui Guanyin's attention was diverted. Her expression turned solemn as she nodded. And, we've encountered golden overlord-level ghosts in the periphery of the ghost swamp. I'm afraid the central area is even more dangerous. Roar, suddenly, the aftermath of a loud roar could be felt. Su Yu could clearly feel the quaking of the swamp, and layers of ripples appeared on the mud beneath his feet. The surrounding divine energy was being pushed away, causing the area covered by the aftermath to become a vacuum. The ghosts hidden deep within the swamp crawled out, fleeing behind Su Yu and the others. Panic quickly spread. Su Yu stared at the horizon. At that moment, a wave of scorching air assaulted him. It was air that had been dispersed from far away. In that wisp of air, Su Yu could smell the deep stench of blood, as well as a strange pressure. It's a trace of the attack of a divine warrior of heaven and earth, the blood Guanyin said. The originally lazy, heartless Saber Emperor shuddered. He immediately got up to investigate. How could there be a divine warrior of heaven and earth in the ghost swamp? If there really was such a huge threat, the Empire would have long sent an army to suppress it. It must have been an ancestor of the Empire who crossed the ghost swamp. Su Yu and the blood Guanyin were silent. The most frightening thing about encountering danger was not the danger itself, but the mentality of the person in danger. Holding the attitude of a fluke, they lied to themselves. This kind of person would die the fastest. Let's take a detour. Su Yu returned to the bronze carriage, choosing to take a detour. He tried his best not to come into contact with the unfamiliar divine warrior of heaven and earth. 3 months passed in the blink of an eye. They should have reached the gate of Taishu, but because they had taken a detour around the central area, they had only just reached the periphery of the ghost swamp. They should have reached the gate of Taishu in another 2 months. Although we wasted 2 months, we did not encounter much danger. It was worth it, Shui Guanyin said. Su Yu said, don't let your guard down, especially at the last moment. Roar, their expressions changed when they heard the aftermath of that inexplicable roar again. Although they were very far away, and it would be difficult for the divine warrior of heaven and earth to arrive in such a short time, it was better to leave as soon as possible. Shui Guanyin's heart suddenly tensed up. Brother Su Yu, why did I hear that roar again? Is it fighting someone, or is it looking for something? It should be the latter. Su Yu's expression darkened. He did not know who or what the divine warrior of heaven and earth was looking for 3 months, and he did not want to know. But just as the bronze chariot was moving forward, the space in front of the chariot suddenly shone brightly, and a giant space vortex appeared out of nowhere. A young man in a white robe fell out of the space vortex. His body was covered in injuries, the most serious being between his brows. A black steel needle had pierced through it, nailing his soul to the spot. His soul could not leave his body. The young man had delicate features, and he looked vaguely familiar. After he fell, he looked at the bronze chariot in surprise, then flew toward the gate of Taishu without hesitation. Please wait, sir, Su Yu shouted. The young man turned his head to look. Not only did he not stop, but he also sped up to leave, his eyes filled with vigilance. If it were Su Yu, he would have made the same choice if he had fallen somewhere and been stopped by a stranger. Ah! Su Yu sighed, his eyes shining with a strange light. Space teleportation. The young man's surroundings flickered with red light. His expression changed, and he said in a low voice, Space divine technique? With a light grunt, the young man crushed a piece of jade, exploding with a strong space energy to resist the space energy surrounding him. Su Yu's face was calm, but the red light in his eyes suddenly intensified. The young man was immediately wrapped by the space energy and sucked in front of Suyu. As soon as he appeared, the young man pointed 2 fingers at Suyu without hesitation. Suyu slid his shoulder lightly, avoiding the finger, and said lightly, "I mean you no harm." Releasing the space energy, the young man retreated 100 feet away, staring coldly at Suyu. Although seriously injured, the young man's eyes were still sharp. "I have something to do, I can't stay." "I know, you are being chased by the divine warrior of heaven and earth, right?" Suyu said. The young man was even more vigilant. "Since you know, if you don't want to bring disaster upon yourself, leave quickly and don't bother me." Suyu said, "It is precisely because I know that I asked you to stay." The young man's eyes flashed. "Do you have any advice?" Suyu said calmly, "Being chased by the divine warrior of heaven and earth for 3 months and still unable to escape, I don't think you can really escape." The young man quieted down and listened quietly to Suyu. "I can help you avoid being tracked," Suyu said. The young man was very calm. "Why are you helping me?" Suyu was a little helpless. "Your life and death are not worth a penny to me. What I care about is the life and death of me and my companions. If you continue to escape like this, the divine warrior of heaven and earth will inevitably chase you to this area. With the power of the divine warrior of heaven and earth, he will definitely notice our existence. I don't want to be implicated by you. After leaving this area, go as far as you can, and don't appear in front of us again," Suyu said coldly. The young man was stunned. He thought he had met an exceptionally kind person, but he didn't expect it to be like this. "Why don't you come in quickly?" Suyu said coldly. "With your ability to resist the divine warrior of heaven and earth for 3 months, you don't have to worry about us doing anything to you." The young man hesitated for a moment, tiptoed, and entered the carriage without saying a word. Suyu immediately quietly created a rule to erase the young man's breath, and even the divine warrior of heaven and earth would not be able to detect it. Suddenly, the young man raised his eyebrows. "What did you do? How did you isolate the divine warrior of heaven and earth from sensing me?" He suddenly realized that the divine warrior of heaven and earth's lock on him had been blocked. "Cut the crap. Sit tight." Suyu did not hesitate at all and drove the bronze carriage away. Behind him, the continuous roars of the divine warrior of heaven and earth could be faintly heard. Obviously, it was a little angry that it had lost its target. After driving for 2 months, there were no more roars of the divine warrior of heaven and earth, so Suyu stopped the bronze carriage. "Get off," Suyu said. The young man who was healing opened his eyes. His body's injuries had basically recovered, but the black steel needle between his eyebrows was extremely difficult to pull out. He was startled. "We're almost at the Taishu gate, and you're letting me go now? Why can't I let you go?" Suyu asked. "I've done my best to send you here. You'd better take care of yourself from now on." The young man said awkwardly, "There's only 1 month left. Why don't you send me to the Taishu gate?" Suyu shook his head. "You and I met by chance. It's better to keep a little distance. It's good for you and for me." He didn't want to enter the Taishu gate with a mysterious person of unknown origin. If their plan to steal the Beishin king's tripod was leaked and the Beishin bloodline in the Taishu gate found out, it would be fun. "Well, with my identity, I don't have any ulterior motives against you and a few foreign civilizations, do I?" The young man was a little helpless. Shuiguanin said softly, "You've been chased all over the place. What identity do you have? Do you think you're the prince of Beishin, Bei Wangchen?" Her words were extremely rude. The young man cupped his fists and smiled bitterly. "Although I'm not Bei Wangchen, I'm still the prince of Beishin. I'm the 9th prince, Bei Wangting." "What?" Shuiguanin was stunned. "Say that again, who are you?" "The 9th prince of Beishin land, Bei Wangting." There was dead silence in the bronze carriage. Chapter 1732. Seeing their shocked expressions, Bei Wangting laughed self-deprecatingly. The world only knows Bei Wangchen. No one knows an unknown prince like me. Duke Beixin had 4 sons and 5 daughters. The most famous one was Bei Wangchen. When Bei Wangchen was mentioned, everyone only thought of Bei Wangchen. As for the other princes and princesses, no one mentioned them. Shui Guanyin questioned, why would the prince of Duke Beixin end up like this? Furthermore, didn't the Duke of Beixin use the cloud stairs? Why would you take the ghost marsh route? The Duke of Beixin knew about the traps and dangers of the city amongst the clouds. That route was far less dangerous than the ghost marsh. I fell from the city amongst the clouds. Bei Wangting's eyes were filled with hatred. Shui Guanyin's gaze shifted. Did something happen in the city amongst the clouds? Yes. Evil creatures invaded the city amongst the clouds, surrounding and killing the Duke of Beixin. Bei Wangting frowned. The black steel needle between his brows looked exceptionally ferocious. Shui Guanyin asked, what were the casualties? Very tragic. Bei Wangting sighed deeply, clenching his fists. 3rd sister, 4th brother, 5th brother, and 8th sister all died in battle. 4 out of the 9 princes and princesses had fallen. Su Yu's expression changed. What were the evil creatures trying to do? Duke Beixin would surely be furious after losing 2 sons and 2 daughters. Who would have thought that the seemingly ordinary trip to the Taishu faction would encounter such a sudden change? What about Bei Wangchen? And his followers? Shui Guanyin's eyes were filled with anticipation. He. Bei Wangting let out a complicated laugh. Who in the world can deal with Bei Wangchen? He is fine, and his followers are unharmed. A look of disappointment flashed across Shui Guanyin's eyes. She had hoped that the traitor Empress Ziwei would get what she deserved. What a pity. Shui Guanyin wrinkled her nose. Is the one chasing you an evil spirit? Yes, Bei Wangting said. An evil spirit at the level of a divine warrior of heaven and earth. What kind of creatures are they? Shui Guanyin asked curiously. An unknown divine warrior of heaven and earth under the control of the Du Empire wantonly slaughtered the children of the princes. Bei Wangting said in a low voice. It's the remnants of the Green Ghost civilization. Su Yu was listening from the side. His face was calm and he wasn't surprised. Other than the remnants of the Green Ghost civilization, there was no other possibility for someone to have such a powerful foundation and dare to openly oppose the Du Empire. Su Yu asked, what is their goal? The remnants of the Green Ghost civilization had been dormant for many years. How could they have come here just to kill a few princes? Beixin Wang tripod. North Wangting was very certain. The imperial cauldron is used to suppress the fate of the Du dynasty. None of the 9 cauldrons are missing. The Green Ghost civilization has returned to the world with the imperial cauldron as their goal. They want to seize the cauldron and destroy the fate of the Du dynasty. Upon hearing that, Su Yu and Blood Guanyin's eyes changed slightly. Right, why are you going to the Great Void Gate? North Gazing Pavilion suddenly asked. Su Yu put his right hand behind his back, and a long sword burning with golden flames slid out of his wide sleeve. The blood lotus under the Blood Guanyin's feet also spun faster. Are you also going to participate in the Great Void Hidden Dragon contest? North Wangting asked. Yes. Su Yu put away the golden flames forbidden wooden sword calmly. North Wangting laughed. I see. After a pause, North Wangting took out a jade butterfly and handed it to Su Yu with both hands. I can't give you anything else for saving my life. This is the token of the Beixin mansion. If you need help in the future, you can use this jade butterfly to look for me at the Beixin mansion. North Wangting straightened his body and left the bronze carriage. Su Yu said, You don't want to continue traveling with us? Shaking his head, North Wangting said, Since you are going to participate in the Hidden Dragon contest, I will not travel with you for your own good. If my second brother finds out that I have befriended the Hidden Dragon contenders, I will be fine, but you will be in trouble. With North Wangchen's breadth of mind, he would never allow his brothers to accumulate power in secret. He might not touch North Wangding, but he would most likely make a move on Su Yu and the others. Farewell. North Wangting flew out of the bronze carriage and disappeared into the distance, leaving behind a sparkling and translucent jade butterfly. Su Yu held it in his palm and gently stroked it. Is this the token of the Beixin bloodline? Shreds of light flickered in the depths of his eyes. The remaining month's journey was exceptionally peaceful. They had successfully arrived at the Taishu faction. Looking from afar, a giant, black door was erected between the heavens and the earth, towering between heaven and earth. We are finally here. Shui Guanyin let out a breath. Throughout the entire journey, they had been tense and alert. They were finally safe. Su Yu said, "We have to thank the evil spirit for scaring away the dangers of the ghost swamp. Otherwise, we would not have reached the Taishu faction so smoothly." Unlike the rumored dangerous ghost swamp, they had not encountered any danger along the way. On the other hand, the cloud ladder, which had been considered safe, had been attacked by the evil spirit. A large number of the Beixin bloodline and their followers had perished. The Wang Cauldron is within the Taishu faction. How do we enter? The merciless Saber Emperor frowned. Shui Guanyin glared at him. Finally awake and concerned about the mission? Along the way, the merciless Saber Emperor was indifferent to everything. Shui Guanyin was indignant. The merciless Saber Emperor grunted. Don't you always discuss everything with Su Yu? When have you ever asked for my opinion? Speaking of which, the arrogant son of a martial emperor did not even have the right to speak in front of Su Yu. He had to hold it in throughout the entire journey. Shui Guanyin sneered. Then you should understand the Taishu faction better. The Taishu faction is never open normally, and outsiders are not allowed to enter except during the Hidden Dragon contest of the Great Void, Shui Guanyin said. The chief cabinet master ordered us to come at this time because he had some considerations. Su Yu nodded. Along the way, Su Yu had been thinking of a plan to seize the cauldron. The Hidden Dragon contest of the Great Void was the best opportunity. The Hidden Dragon contest of the Northern Territory was held once every 100 years to select the top 9 geniuses. The selection would take place within the Taishu faction. Not only within the fiefdom, but many geniuses from outside the fiefdom would also come to participate. Besides being invited by Bei Wangchen to become a guest behind the scenes, the final rewards of the competition were also very generous. The 9th to 4th place would have the opportunity to become the last disciple of Duke Beixin, the divine warrior of heaven and earth. The top 3 would have the opportunity to enter the cauldron and use the fortune of the Du Empire to break through their own bottleneck. Especially for half-step to divine warriors of heaven and earth, the top 3 rewards were even more rare. Among the dozens of divine warriors of heaven and earth in the Du Empire, more than half had used the fortune of the Du Empire to break through their bottlenecks and become divine warriors. The opportunity to seize the cauldron was right in front of them. They arrived at the Taishu faction. There was already a large crowd near the giant door, about 1,000 people. Most of their cultivation levels were above that of the Golden Overlord. Gathered together, they gave off a great pressure. Obviously, they had also come to participate in the Hidden Dragon contest of the Great Void. The difference was, compared to Su Yu, most of them looked exhausted. Some of them had obvious injuries on their bodies, looking battered and exhausted. It looked like their journey had been bumpy and dangerous. Those 3 people are strange. They look safe and sound. I wonder if they passed through the Ghost Marsh or the Cloud Ladder. It is indeed strange. The Cloud Ladder this time is dangerous, but the Ghost Marsh is not peaceful either. Not only are there mysterious divine warriors of heaven and earth wreaking havoc, but there are also unknown forces taking the opportunity to hunt. Have they not encountered this before? In the previous Hidden Dragon contests, evil forces would hunt and kill competitors in the Ghost Marsh. This year is the most serious. In the previous years, at least 10,000 people would survive. But this year? Only 1,000 people. The strength of the evil forces can be imagined. They must have covered every corner of the two paths. But they did not encounter them. There must be something strange about this. Hearing their conversation, Suyu was surprised. If that was the case, the reason why their trip to the Ghost Marsh was so peaceful was because they were exceptionally lucky. How could there be such a huge evil force? Could it be related to them bypassing the central area? Suyu steered the bronze carriage to the side silently. Following that, more and more competitors rushed out of the Ghost Marsh. Without exception, all of them were either injured or weak. At that moment, a black flying ship cut through the miasma of the Ghost Marsh, letting out an ear-piercing sound as it approached. A group of people dressed in purple jumped down from the flying ship. Each of them had a purple gourd hanging from their waists, and they wore masks with evil carvings on their faces. Their entire bodies emitted an uncomfortable evil energy. What was different was that most of them were unharmed. The Fanshan evil faction. Some of the strong martial artists recognized the people on the flying ship and gasped. They are also one of the hunters. I encountered them and escaped from their hands. It's them. The group of people who had been hunted were shocked and angry, but they did not dare resist. Even if they could defeat them, attacking in front of the Great Void Gate would be considered a violation of the Great Void Hidden Dragon's rules, and they would be disqualified from the competition. The people of the Fanshan evil faction emitted waves of evil energy as they arrived at the Great Void Gate. You move aside. The leader of the purple-robed people extended a finger, pointing at the three strong martial artists with auras at the peak of the Overlord level. Those three people had the highest cultivation levels among the people present. What was even more frightening was that the three of them had joined forces. Looking at the whole place, no one could be their opponent. Therefore, the three of them had occupied the best spot to enter the Great Void Gate, the center of the gate. At that moment, they were asked to move aside by the people of the Fanshan evil faction. This is going to be fun. Those three people should be the three gentlemen of the Thousand Water Lake. Rumor has it that the three of them once fought against a half-world divine warrior without losing. Looks like the Fanshan evil faction has kicked a steel plate. The three gentlemen of the Thousand Water Lake are not to be trifled with. The crowd was filled with anticipation. The three gentlemen of the Thousand Water Lake exchanged glances, and after a few exchanges, they took the initiative to leave, making room for the center. The crowd was disappointed, but at the same time, shocked. Even the three gentlemen of the Thousand Water Lake were wary of the Fanshan evil faction. It looked like the Fanshan evil faction was even more powerful than they appeared to be. At least you know what's good for you. The leader of the purple-robed people smirked. In the ghost swamp, the three of you ran fast. Otherwise, I would have sent you to hell with the Golden Virgin. Hearing this, many people gasped in shock. What? The Golden Virgin is dead? No way? Rumor has it that the Golden Virgin is an old monster that has been famous for many years. Her cultivation level has already reached the peak of the Overlord level. Especially the Golden Virgin. Rumor has it that she has already reached the half-world divine warrior level. What kind of trump card does the Fanshan evil faction have? How did they manage to kill the Golden Virgin? No wonder the three gentlemen of the Thousand Water Lake didn't dare to face them. They have seen the power of the Fanshan evil faction with their own eyes. A group of purple-robed people occupied the center position aggressively. The people around them made way for them, afraid of offending them. However, just as the purple-robed people occupied the center position, a coquettish voice rang out. Your Excellency, could you do me a favor and give up the center position to me? The voice was coquettish and seductive, and it was soft to the ears. It also contained a charm that caused people to fall into a momentary obsession, both men and women. Suyu was also momentarily obsessed, but he quickly came to his senses. He bit his tongue and sobered up. The leader of the purple-robed people's expression changed drastically. 1,000 miles illusory sound technique. It's the secret technique of the Hawan civilization's royal family. Hee hee. A coquettish laugh rang out, and a gigantic peach blossom slowly flew over from the sky. There were 3 men and 3 women in the peach blossom. The men were tall and handsome, and they had an extraordinary bearing. They were the standard for many women's dream lovers. The women were graceful and alluring, and their beauty was enough to topple a city. Everyone present was stunned. Handsome men and beautiful women might not be rare, but it was rare to see 6 extremely handsome men and beautiful women gathered together. Especially the woman in the play. She was lying on her side on a pink bed carved with the stamens of the peach blossom. The overlapping red gauze couldn't conceal her astonishing figure, nor could it conceal her soul-stirring charm. Looking at her, many people felt that there was no woman more beautiful than her in the world. Suyu was also deeply amazed. However, he had seen Xia Jingyu's incomparable beauty, so he had a strong immunity to it. His eyes were calm, and there was not much lust in them. As the peach blossom approached, the beautiful woman lying on her side opened her red lips and asked, "Gentlemen, can you give up that position to me?" Her coquettish words reached everyone's ears again. At such a close distance, everyone trembled as if they had been electrocuted. The purple-robed leader's face was filled with fear, and he hurriedly said, "I am Xiaoxia from the Fanshan evil faction. Greetings, Saint Lady of the Acacia civilization. Since you like it, Xiaoxia will naturally let you have it." The Fanshan evil faction, who had been arrogant just a moment ago, immediately retreated to the side, not daring to oppose the people in the peach blossom. Suyu glanced at their cultivations, and he was shocked to discover that the weakest of them was a peak overlord. The most powerful was the charming woman, who was enveloped in a special atmosphere that he could not see through. As if she had sensed something, the charming woman looked at Suyu and said with a smile, "Young man, since you like me, why don't you come forward and look at me?" Suyu's response was calm. "No need, thank you." The charming woman sat up on the pink bed, her fair right hand supporting her chin. She looked at Suyu with great interest. "I've been curious since just now. Everyone is affected by my charm, but why are you an exception?" She was very observant, and she had seen everyone's reactions just now. Suyu's unusual behavior naturally did not escape her eyes. "Miss, you worry too much. You are very beautiful, and I admire you very much," Suyu said calmly. The charming woman giggled. "Hee hee, I admire you very much too." Suddenly, the charming woman seemed to have sensed something. She walked down from the peach blossom and approached Suyu with light step. Her charming eyes looked at Suyu. "Have you seen my 13th brother?" Chapter 1733. The charming woman's beautiful eyes emitted a strange light, a light that could hypnotize people. As her lips parted, some mysterious soul-controlling sound wave was contained. "Who is it?" Suyu asked calmly and soberly, completely unaffected by the charm. The charming woman was slightly shocked. He had not been affected just now, perhaps because he had a firm mind. But now, even though she had deliberately bewitched him, he was still immune to it. This was not something that could be achieved by a personality appraisal. Either he had cultivated a divine technique to strengthen the divine soul, or he had a special treasure that could resist the charm. Concealing the shock on her face, the charming woman said, "The holy ruins, the 13th saint." "I don't know him," Suyu said calmly, secretly pinching the heavenly orchid silver bamboo fruit in his sleeve. If it had not absorbed the charm, Suyu might have fallen for it. "Is that so? Then where did you get his aura of acacia?" The charming woman twirled her fingers and hooked them at Suyu. An invisible pink gas that was entwining Suyu's body flew away from him and returned to her palm. Suyu was calm and composed. "I don't know. Maybe I came into contact with it unintentionally. An unknown woman, an unknown power, an unknown influence. Naturally, He would not admit that he had seen the so-called 13th brother. In fact, when Suyu first met them, they looked vaguely familiar. If he remembered correctly, the young ruins master of the holy ruins he had encountered in the void seemed to be from the Acacia civilization. He must be the 13th brother that this woman had mentioned. He, interesting young man, the charming woman giggled. She wanted to ask someone, but one sentence was enough to make him answer. Suyu was the only one who did not answer. If you don't answer, you must be willing. Her beautiful eyes turned to look at the merciless Saber Emperor. Is that so? Wisps of seductive light gushed out and locked onto the merciless Saber Emperor. He immediately sank into it, his eyes glazed over. We don't know 13th brother, but we have met the young ruins master of the holy ruins. The charming woman's eyes flashed. Where is he? Dead, the merciless Saber Emperor said. Swish. The 3 men and 2 women in the peach blossom rushed over, their faces full of shock and anger. How dare you kill the young ruins master? A sharp energy pierced through the sky and struck the merciless Saber Emperor's abdomen. Bang! The merciless Saber Emperor's abdomen was pierced through, and his entire body was sent flying like a fallen leaf, smashing into the gate of Great Void, and then heavily bouncing back to the ground. The incomparably sharp pain pierced his soul, and finally woke up the merciless Saber Emperor. However, before he could react, a foot stepped on his back. The heartless Saber Emperor's bones emitted crackling sounds under the crushing pressure of the enormous force. In fact, it seemed as if they were about to completely shatter. The merciless Saber Emperor opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood mixed with minced flesh. His face was filled with pain as he begged, Suyu, Blood Guanine, save me quickly. The pitiful merciless Saber Emperor didn't even understand what had happened, and he was brutally abused when he woke up. His 2 companions as well. Capture them and kill them on the spot. The 5 of them were extremely furious. Their anger was not only because of the death of the young master of the ruins, but also because they, who were high and mighty, were provoked by a lowly existence. Stop! The charming woman waved her sleeve, stopping the 5 of them. Saintus! 13th young ruin master died an unjust death. The 5 of them were filled with grief and indignation. The charming woman said indifferently, There is no need for you to cry and howl. The 5 of them immediately hid their strange expressions and stood respectfully to the side. They were in awe of the charming woman. Turning around, the charming woman looked at Suyu. Who killed him? Unexpectedly, she did not think that it was Suyu and the others who did it. Suyu looked over calmly and said, The divine warrior of heaven and earth of the Flood Dragon clan. As soon as he said this, the expressions of the people present changed drastically. Flood Dragon? Why would a Flood Dragon appear near the Dayu civilization? That can't be right. The Flood Dragon clan usually appears in more advanced civilizations. Why would they descend here? He must be lying. The charming woman's expression did not change. She asked, Why did you kill him? I gathered the translated method of controlling meteors and made it into some kind of divine item that could travel through the void. Such an explanation caused the charming woman to ponder for a long time. Perhaps she agreed with it. She asked, Then how did you come back alive? Suyu shrugged his shoulders helplessly. Our method of controlling meteors was too clumsy. That divine warrior looked down on us. The method of controlling meteors of the human clan was publicly acknowledged to be inferior. Such an explanation made sense. But did she believe it? The charming woman's solemn expression dissipated. She looked Suyu up and down and said, Upon closer inspection, you do look like a handsome young man. How about you follow me? The bystanders all revealed complex expressions of envy and fear. To be chosen by the Holy Maiden of Hahuan was enough to show how outstanding the man was. But all those who were chosen by the Holy Maiden of Hahuan did not end up well. All of them had their yin and yang primordial energy depleted, their cultivation levels regressed, or they died. No. Su Yu's reply was concise. The charming woman giggled, her huge chest heaving up and down in shock. The more I can't have him, the more I want to have him. Peach Blossom, Shueiwei, capture him. Su Yu's face was calm. You can't win my heart like this. I just want you to be mine. Among the 3 men and 2 women, an extremely handsome man and woman walked out. They walked towards Su Yu with smiles on their faces. Young master, it is your honor to be chosen by the holy maiden. Why don't you submit to our saint master? This scene had the flavor of a foppish young master forcing a respectable girl. Su Yu felt a chill run down his spine. Are you planning to fight here? Only then did the other party realize that something was wrong. In front of the Great Void Gate, anyone who dared to fight would be eliminated. Forget it then. After entering the Great Void Gate, I will have plenty of opportunities to have you. The charming woman looked at Su Yu, her pink tongue licking her lips. She looked like she was going to eat Su Yu up. Su Yu had goosebumps all over his body. He leaned back slightly to avoid the woman's fiery gaze. Humph! As he retreated, he bumped into a soft body behind him. Turning his head, he saw the blood Guanyin with her arms crossed in front of her chest. Her breasts were rising and falling as she stared at Su Yu. Strange women like you no matter where you go. The blood Guanyin snorted. The ancient dream altar had the female corpse in the ice coffin, and the Great Void Gate had the Holy Maiden of the Holy Maiden of the Holy Maiden of Hahuan. Su Yu spread his hands, expressing his helplessness. Over the next 2 days, the number of people coming out of the ghost marsh gradually decreased. Strangely, most of them were unscathed or lightly injured. Participants often pointed out that they were the evil forces that had hunted the participants. They all had one thing in common. They were all safe and sound, just like Su Yu. As such, many of the gazes directed at Su Yu were filled with hatred and fear. It was obvious that they were also part of the evil forces. Su Yu had no choice but to wait calmly. On the 5th day, more than 2,000 people had gathered in front of the Great Void Gate. It had been 3 days since any living creatures had emerged from the Ghost Marsh. Almost all of the participants on the path of the Ghost Marsh had arrived. Only the cloud ladder remained motionless. At that moment, rumbling sounds could be heard from deep within the heavens. A ladder formed by the condensation of clouds extended from the endless sky, descending in front of the Great Void Gate. Everyone present was shocked. Living creatures had finally arrived on the cloud ladder. In the past, the cloud ladder was always faster than the Ghost Marsh. Why is it last this time? Don't you know? There was a huge change in the city amongst the clouds where the cloud ladder had to pass through. Many strong people died on the spot and were trapped in the city amongst the cloud. A large number of people escaped from the city amongst the clouds. Some gave up on training in the city amongst the clouds, while others came here through the Ghost Marsh. Su Yu looked over. He could see the depths of the cloud ladder in the distance. Endless golden light was shining along the cloud ladder. It's the Golden Crow holy light of the Beixin faction. The Beixin faction is here. This is great. I thought that this year's Hidden Dragon contest would fail because there was no one to host it. Only the Beixin faction was qualified to host the Hidden Dragon contest. The Beixin kingdom was busy with national affairs and could not afford to be distracted. Usually, it was the Beixin faction that came to host the contest. Many people heaved a sigh of relief, their eyes filled with anticipation. I wonder which Beixin faction will host this year's contest. With anticipation, the crowd waited for the arrival of the Beixin faction. However, just as the golden light was about to descend, a strange scene suddenly occurred. The mass of golden light suddenly exploded. A powerful golden storm struck, enveloping the Great Void Gate in a radius of 10,000 feet. In an instant, Su Yu felt his body become light as a feather, and he was immediately blown away by the golden storm. At the critical moment, he waved his palm, took out the Azura sword, and stabbed it into the ground. However, the golden storm was getting stronger and stronger. The ground was cracked, and the ground 3 feet behind was directly lifted up. Suyu held the Azura sword and was also blown away. At the critical moment, the Azura sword in Suyu's hand suddenly swept across. Demon Master World. The unparalleled power of the sword cut open the golden gale that wrapped around him. However, before it could stabilize, an even stronger gale came to supplement it. Suyu swung his sword again. This time, he barely cut it open. Taking advantage of the gap, Suyu swung his sword several times in succession. However, the strength of the gale increased exponentially, making it more difficult to swing the sword. At the last stroke, Suyu was blown away along with his sword. In desperation, Suyu used the fruit of the heavenly orchid silver bamboo to absorb the gale that wrapped around his body. Only then did his body stabilize. Even so, using powerful sword techniques continuously consumed his divine power. He was very exhausted and panting. Suddenly, a delicate cry came from behind. The divine power of the blood guanine was exhausted and could no longer resist the gale. She was blown away and disappeared in the golden storm in the blink of an eye. Suyu held the fruit of the heavenly orchid silver bamboo in his hand and was not affected by the gale. He ran as fast as he could, leaving a series of afterimages, and caught up with the waste of the blood guanine. At the moment, the gale was too strong, and the two of them could not speak at all. They could only watch the increasingly terrible gale blow away everything around them. Many contestants were blown away by the golden gale and disappeared without a trace. Only a few contestants with abundant divine power or extremely powerful strength could barely resist the golden storm. After struggling for a stick of incense, the storm finally stopped. Looking around, the vicinity of the Great Void Gate was fragmented and full of devastation. It was completely different from the scene when they came. If the Great Void Gate was not here, they would have thought that they had been teleported to another place. Those who were blown away by the golden gale also slowly came to the Great Void Gate with different injuries. What's going on with that golden storm? It's so strange. What kind of demon dares to make trouble in front of the Beishin bloodline and hurt us contestants? The sudden change just now had stirred up everyone, and there was a lot of discussion. At that moment, the cloud ladder trembled slightly, and the huge mass of golden light slid down the ladder. Greetings, Envoy Beishin. Everyone greeted respectfully. Before the golden light dissipated, a lazy man's voice could be heard. The first segment of the assessment has ended. Those who were blown thousands of feet away from the Great Void Gate, you have been eliminated. Please return. What? Many people who were still greeting were shocked. The Golden Storm is an assessment? Why wasn't it explained in advance? The lazy voice continued. The Great Void Hidden Dragon assessment changes every year. The Beishin bloodline has no obligation to explain it to you in advance. But that is not fair. We were hunted by the evil forces in the Ghost Swamp. We were either injured or lacking divine power. Without any preparation, we were blown thousands of feet away by the sudden golden gale. This does not reflect the strength that we should have. Before he could finish, the lazy voice interrupted him. The truly strong only look for their own reasons. Only the weak blame the heavens and others. Suyu frowned slightly. It sounded reasonable, but it lacked an objective situation. It was indeed unfair to face the assessment under such circumstances. Suyu had seen with his own eyes that a few severely injured peak overlords had been blown away before they could display their strength. The other party had spoken so casually, but in fact, he was looking down on them from a superior position. I am not convinced. Who are you? How can you dismiss all our efforts so easily? Someone protested. They had risked their lives to get here from the Ghost Swamp, only to receive such treatment. It was truly disappointing. Haha, the wail of a defeated dog. The lazy voice calmly said, I am the one who will be taking the assessment for this year's Hidden Dragon Taishu. Do you have any objections? Everyone was shocked. Prince? In the past, it was always the older generation of the Beishin bloodline. Why would it be given to a young prince this year? Impossible, the lazy voice calmly said. In the eyes of trash, age decides everything. Only in the eyes of the strong, strength decides everything. The golden light dissipated, revealing the true appearance within. Impressively, it was a huge group. More than a dozen people were within the golden light. They were all riding on a light-winged golden boat. The golden storm just now had originated from that pair of powerful light wings. At the head of the golden boat was a throne carved with the sun and moon. A youth dressed in luxurious clothes and a tall crown was sitting on it. His eyes seemed to contain stars and were extremely bright. Anyone who looked into those eyes would feel their hearts tremble. He had a lazy expression, like a high and mighty Brahma god, looking at the ants on the ground in boredom. His gaze was extremely arrogant, and behind him, without exception, were absolute powerhouses. The lowest was an extremely cold and arrogant woman. Her expression was icy cold, and she revealed a cold arrogance that kept others at arm's length. However, as she stood on the golden boat, she lowered her head deeply towards the throne. Suyu was shocked to see her. Empress Ziwei. However, Suyu was not surprised by her appearance, but by her arrogance. Why would she lower her head to another man? For a moment, Suyu felt a sense of unfamiliarity. After a year, was this still the arrogant Empress Ziwei that he knew? It was only when a gasp of surprise woke Suyu from his reverie. Bei Wangchen. It's actually Bei Wangchen.